Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Roto Street. RotoStreetJournal.com, we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 7 sit starts. Let's go, guys. This is the heart of the season. This is where the bye weeks are piling up. No Ravens, no Bills, two hugely explosive offenses. Lots of injuries in Week 7. I've never been more intrigued by the random waiver wire list. There's guys that are available in 80% or more leagues that I think have very, very viable upside in Week 7 as well. So we're going to talk about all of those players, all the news. But as always, the vast majority of this time will be spent on your questions. What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for coming here and spending your Sunday morning with us. Looks like we got a couple very, very generous super chats right off the jump. So even before we get into our Week 7 Thursday Night Football takeaways, which we always like to do, we'll hit some Week 7 news. And then, as I said, all your questions. But as always, you can skip the line with a super chat. And Kristen Mann coming in here with a very, very generous $20 super chat. That is incredible, Kristen. Thank you so much. Good morning to you as well. Full PPR, locked in Rice, receiver 1. Absolutely. Gibbs and CMC for running backs. Good Lord, Kristen. This team is already insane, getting me very excited first thing in the morning. Unbelievable, though. What a great roster to start. But now we need a wide receiver 2 and a flex. So we got Quentin Johnston, Rico Dowdle, Bourne, Worthy. Have a great Sunday. Awesome options. I am very, very envious of your team. This is a phenomenal roster here. We can only start 2 of these guys. I do think, when we're pulling this many hairs, I'd probably have Worthy the highest. But that being said, when you have Rice already in, I think I want to spread that wealth a little bit more. I'd actually probably rank them Dowdle, then Worthy, then Johnston, just a little bit behind Worthy in my rankings. But to spread that love, and not to say that that Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs can't pile on 50 points on this pathetic Raiders defense, and both Worthy and Rice are viable. Certainly an option, but how I would probably play this is I'd go Quentin Johnston. I'd go Rico Dowdle. I do love Kendrick Bourne, who we're certainly going to talk about today. Back-to-back 140-yard days. Still has his boy Mac Jones at the quarterback helm there, carrying over that rapport from New England. That's his guy. And I know Juwan Jennings is active, but we saw last week, 1 target, playing through apparently 5 broken ribs and sprained ankles and whoever knows what else. The walking dead Juwan Jennings at this point. So I do think we got Kendrick Bourne for some real value today. I do highly respect him. I have him over A.J. Brown. I tweeted that out yesterday. I have Kendrick Bourne above A.J. Brown in my rankings, things I never thought I'd say in 2025 fantasy football. So I do love him. Don't get me wrong. But to me, I think he's the distant 4th option here. I know Chuba Hubbard's going to be inside. Chris, what I love about your question is it covers so much of the news that we're going to need to talk about. So a lot of other people are like, oh, great. I had a question on Dowdle. Is he playing him? 2 reasons why you should play Dowdle is, 1, I'm facing it. My main league, my buddy has him. He's been on an absolute tear, though. The most important part, back-to-back games with well over 200 yards from scrimmage. Yes, it was the most possible juicy matchups in terms of Miami, the Cowboys. You couldn't ask for better spots for this guy. But I just love that you buckle your chin straps up, talking trash to his old teammates, and then coming out of the game and saying, I guess the chin straps wasn't buckled. Love it. The guy is playing at a different level. Huge fan of what he's doing. And yeah, sure, Dave Canales is being really coy. Oh, we're not going to tip our hand and tell people who's starting and who's going to get the majority of the work. And we like both our backs. It brings a big physical presence up to him. Sure, I don't think Chuba just disappears. But in that same breath, Dave Canales mentioned how literally Rico Dowdle is breathing life, was the quote, breathing life into our scheme. I mean, what more endorsement do you need to have? You're really hiding who you're going to start. What a great competitive edge you're gaining there, Dave Canales. It's going to be Rico Dowdle. It is just a matter of, is this a 70% split? Is it 80? Is it only 55? My guess is it's 65 to 70. Dowdle gets the first crack, and if he's still doing what he's been doing these last couple of weeks, we've seen Canales ride workhorses for the vast majority of his time, even dating back to when he was the OC in Tampa Bay. So I think Dowdle is still a very good start. Now, I will admit he went from my running back 7, 8 to my running back 13, 14, goes from a surefire top 12 running back 1 high end to an elite running back 2 is how I kind of view Dowdle. But you can't bench this guy the way he's been playing. Matchup, nothing to worry about here today as well. I know it's not quite as juicy as Miami and the Cowboys, but the Jets are an absolute doormat too. So, Kristen, thank you again so much for your generous super chat. And then for Quentin Johnston, really quickly, again, all these guys we're going to be talking about in the news. So this is kind of the news at the same time. I'll make sure to go quickly through those players. But Quentin Johnston, he'll be back. He practiced in full as of Thursday off the injury report. And what great timing. The Colts are down into their, I believe, 4th and 5th string cornerbacks. They already were allowing the 5th most points to wide receivers. This is going to be a bloodbath. I think all of your Chargers wide receivers are very viable. In particular, the Colts have struggled against the outside guys, the big play threats. They're a little bit better at locking down. They have a nice slot nickel corner that's been pretty solid. So Keenan Allen, he's still a great play, don't get me wrong. But Quentin Johnston, maybe they kick Ladd to the outside, but certainly QJ, I'm starting him right away, right back into his triumphant return. This guy was the number 1 wide receiver. I know that we just saw Ladd have his best day of the season with Quentin Johnston removed, but it wouldn't shock me at all if QJ just walks right back in, another 10-plus targets, and just lights the secondary up. And you got the fact that this offense on the other side, the Colts could keep pace. This game could be one of those back and forth shootouts, the second highest total on the slate today for that game as well, in a close spread. So everything you're looking for, and in a dome, right? All those factors, all those boxes getting checked for a game environment here for Quentin Johnston. So I go Dowdle, I go Johnston. If I didn't have Rashee Rice already locked in my lineup, I do think I probably would have gone Worthy Dowdle. But with you already, how much are they going to need against the Raiders? Maybe a lot. Maybe they, again, both get there. That would not shock me at all. But I'd like to spread my bets out here a little bit, Kristen. What a roster, though. Well done. Thank you again so much for your generous super chat. And Robert coming in with an also very generous $10 super chat as well. Thank you so much. Hey, ever consider taking a chance starting Worthy? It's right as we were just talking about it, Worthy and Rice this week. Your thoughts have Bourne. It is very, very similar, Robert, to the question we just talked about. I think in your situation, I do have Bourne just far enough away. I think I probably would actually roll both of these Chiefs. They have one of the highest, I believe the second or third highest team total implied this week. It's just a matter of, do they keep their foot on the gas? But then there is the whole, the Raiders played the Kermit the Frog video, and there's just some bad blood between the Raiders. I love that's one of my favorite little rivalries is Mahomes versus the Raiders, and he always has some bad blood. And the Raiders also always have a game where they play the Chiefs tough, so maybe that's this week. Who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised if Mahomes wants to really pile it on. I think in your shoes, I probably do go Rice and Worthy. I do love Bourne. Again, this is kind of rare that I'd go not Bourne in the first 2 questions I get about him, because I have him +7 ECR. I have him above A.J. Brown, as mentioned. Love that he's back with Mac Jones. If you felt like you want to spread your bets, I do think Bourne is worth considering, Robert. But I personally would go Worthy and Rice on this one. With Terry and Worthy on waivers. Oh, you got both of them on waivers? You got to pick both of them up, I think. But I would probably rather have Worthy the rest of the season. But how those guys are on waivers, that's wild, Robert. So, yes, if you can possibly scoop them both up, please do. But I do think I go both Chiefs guys, let them light it up this week, full PPR. And Bourne does get that boost in full PPR, the way he's been that target hog. But you do have to consider, first, George Kittle's going to be back. And he could just walk right into the number 1 target role. I mean, that first quarter of action, the only one we got to see of him, he was the bane of the passing attack. He had that touchdown, was looking like he was going to be off and running as the league winner we were hoping for. I'm hoping he just walks right back into that. I have Kittle in pretty much every league. Cannot wait to see him today. I have Rice in a lot of these leagues too, so it's a very exciting day. I can't wait for this week 7 action. So you have that, though, plus number 1 attention now going to be going to him. So ultimately, I think there is the risk that, like, Bourne, despite these back-to-back 140, 10-plus target days, it's a real risk that maybe Kittle just steps right in as the true number 1 in this matchup. So, and A.J. Terrell, too, you get the number 1 treatment if they don't put him in shadow Kittle, which I don't think they do. There's just a little bit more risk than just having all pretty well, maybe not all, because Kelsey could catch one, but Rice, Worthy, you're talking about the big plays, lighting up a bad defense that's given up the 3rd most yards per reception. There's a lot to love there, Robert. Thank you so much for that super chat. In your shoes, again, I'd go both Chiefs guys. My man, Coach Zeke, great to see you. Got big energy, need another W. Let's go. Bring that thunder here, Coach Zeke. Let's go. Take these guys down. You need 1 flex half PPR between Bourne, McCaffrey, Io Manor, and Marks. Tough one. I do think I go Kendrick Bourne here. It is tough because I am a huge fan of Luke McCaffrey here, largely because of the matchup. I mean, the Cowboys have been so abysmal. So your super chats are very helpful today, guys, not just because you're supporting your boy, which is so greatly appreciated, but you're bringing up some of the biggest storylines of the day, Luke McCaffrey being one of them. Now, I do go Kendrick Bourne ahead of Luke McCaffrey. This is where it's like he's got Mac Jones still there. Yes, Kittle's coming back, but those two have a rapport that just cannot be broken, so it would seem. And I'm just going to trust 140 in back-to-back games. Yes, the Falcon secondary, they've been pretty locked down. They've been very solid here. But I just think, Kyle Shanahan, one might want to stick it to the Falcons. Why not? Former OC, job. Not that they did him wrong. But you always have a little extra juice when you're facing your former employer. And then, two, ultimately, he's just so good at scheming these guys open that, yes, a corner being a lockdown threat does worry me. But he's so good with the motion and the pick routes and all that he's going to shake his number one guy free, and that has been Kendrick Bourne pretty vehemently these last 2 weeks. Again, without Kittle, I get it. That does make him a little riskier. Now, Luke McCaffrey, the only reason he's in consideration is the Cowboys' defense being on the other side of them. They're allowing not only the most points to the wide receiver position by like a mile, historically bad. You can add 14 extra points over the expectations is how much they're adding. In terms of the season average for a team, they add another 14 points on top of that for their wide receiver unit when facing the Cowboys, like a whole extra 2 touchdowns worth of fantasy points. And who's he going to throw to at this point, Jaden Daniels? There's no Debo. There's no Terry. Yes, it's your guess is kind of as good as mine is how the situation looks. But in my eyes, Luke McCaffrey's the most exciting. We've got 3 touchdowns in his last 4 games, a huge big play in nearly every single one of them. And I understand that under 40% of the snaps in all these games. What's his route share going to actually look like now? When I look at it, though, in terms of just who has the most playmaking juice, who could you say, you know what, let's see if we can design a passing attack around this guy. Debo's removed. A lot of people on Twitter saying it's Jalen Lane, the exciting rookie, and maybe it is. A lot of other people saying the veteran savvy of Chris Moore had that touchdown last week, and he does always seem, whenever Chris Moore, he pops up every 7 years on a random new team, and when he starts, he just has 100 yards and a touchdown out of nowhere, and that's the last you hear of him for 3 years. Who knows what this fabled Chris Moore will do, but he always does seem to rise to the occasion when he is given the chance. So I like him as well, but to me, McCaffrey has the clearest, highest ceiling. Young guy, athletic guy, McCaffrey blood. What else do you need in terms of an argument for him? Plus, again, scoring those 3 touchdowns, 14, 10, 6, and 10 points in his last 4 games. I mean, that's solid enough wide receiver 3 flex production with Debo in the lineup. I'm just excited to see, if I could put one of these guys in my lineup or on my bench, he's the one that I would most like to see. What does he do? And I did add him last night at midnight. Finished up a few games at Catan and saw the news on Debo and immediately just hit McCaffrey, whether it's had to drop my kicker or a defense I was stashed. I had the Colts in a lot of leagues for next week's matchup against Tennessee. I said, you know what? I really want to see what this McCaffrey kid does. Just given, again, the very limited snaps, but when he's in, he's made a huge impact on the game. And now you might have to design it. And this defense is bad. A lot of people, it's Bill's the only one that really goes up. They just pound the rock. Ertz will go up. He's 16 targets. Yes, I get that. Ertz does go up too. We'll cover all the news on that move in a little bit. But ultimately, McCaffrey's the one with the juice. If somebody was just shocks you and has an 8-catch, 140-yard, 2-touchdown day, do I think McCaffrey does that? No. Do I think the Cowboys defense is bad enough to allow that? Yeah, I actually do. So maybe we meet in the middle there, and it's a 6-catch, 50-yard touchdown day. But for those of you with desperate flex situations, I do think in general, the Commanders receivers, whether you missed on McCaffrey and you go to Chris Moore or even Jalen Lane, this is one of my favorite spots to attack. I have an article on the website this week that I had a few extra hours as proctoring the SATs yesterday and had an hour or two to kill while doing that. So I wrote up some of my favorite flex tabs before the Dallas news broke. I did add an update at the top saying McCaffrey is now my favorite streamer of the week. He's my wide receiver, 37 plus 16 ECR. Very, very high on him. But you still got Jordan Whittington in this London game, right? So if anybody has a London game question, please do let me know. He would be my second favorite sleeper of the week. Try to get those questions in early, and not that I would ever beg for a super chat, but if you do need one before that 9:30 kickoff, who knows? This mailbag does fill fast, so if you want a guaranteed answer, it's the only way to make sure you get it in. So I love Whittington. I had Michael Mayer as my second favorite. Again, now it goes McCaffrey, Whittington, Michael Mayer. I had Tez Johnson as the now fourth. Then we have Chris Moore would slide in right there at 5, Alec Pierce 6, and then Oronde Gadsden 7. So I have write-ups on everybody other than the Commanders guys. I did mention McCaffrey would now get my top guy. I know that's Coach, I answered your question a while ago, but again, this is something we're going to cover on the show, so might as well hit it while it's in action here. I'm going to go Kendrick Bourne. If you had to pick 2, McCaffrey would be the next one up for me. I am intrigued to go Io Minor, no cavalry relief, somewhat intriguing, but honestly, I've gone elsewhere at this point. That team is such a dumpster fire, maybe the interim head coach bump, but I think the Pats snuff them out today. Marks does intrigue me. There's some very nice receiving stats that Seattle allows, I believe, the second most receiving yards and second most just all-around fantasy points to receiving backs on the receptions alone. And so that does make Marks intriguing. There's the report that he's going to be more active, more involved. But to me, Bourne, 10-ish targets. He's the safest locked-in option. McCaffrey being that crazy high ceiling. Those are the top 2 in my eyes, Bourne being my favorite option. Brainy Bees TV, you guys are so generous. I haven't even had the time to do the Thursday Night Football takeaways. Maybe we'll end up skipping those. It's just because the mailbag is already building up. The super chats are already plentiful. Thank you again so much, guys. I'll make sure to whip through them very quickly. But Brainy Bees. Pick a flex. Bam Knight, Chris Moore, Burden, and also quarterback, Stafford, Darnold, or Rattler. Thank you. Thank you again, Brady Bees, for the super chat. For the quarterback situation, I would be going Stafford here. I understand there's no Puka, but it's just the McVay engine. Yes, you'd lose a certain amount of juice, no doubt about it, when you have the leading receiver in the NFL taken out of the lineup. But I do like this Whittington kid a lot. I do think he could have a nice 7-catch, 60-yard touchdown day. The Jags, competitive atmosphere, 44.5 over-under with a small spread like that. So I do think Stafford's the guy I roll with here. Darnold, Houston, that just seems like 2 teams kind of battering at each other with the running backs and bleeding clock at 10 o'clock on Monday Night Football. You're struggling to keep your eyes open, wondering what your quarterback's doing. Darnold's been so hyper efficient. There's even like MVP chatter for Darnold, and I understand where it comes from. I love this Clint Kubiak offense. I think it's phenomenal. But I just think that isn't the game atmosphere doesn't pop off to me as much as I could see Liam Cohen, Sean McVay disciple, wanting to show his old boss, hey, I'm better than you, and they suddenly are designing plays back and forth, and you're getting a fun little shootout. I think that seems like the better atmosphere. Rattler has, I will admit, played better ball, caught my eye a little bit more these last few weeks. It's not a bad atmosphere against Chicago, too. But Stafford versus Rattler, I mean, like, just think about, like, actually going to an NFL GM and being like, who would you rather play? And I know this is a different game we play, but my fantasy locker room needs to respect who I roll out there. And I think Stafford commands the most respect as well. But in all seriousness, the matchup's great. The weather's fine. I know the weather is like, there's a little bit of rain there, but I think it ended up being a light rain. I'm going to have to, my man Campanelli, I don't know if you don't mind checking, like Kevin Roth, I think is the Ken or Kevin Roth. Great weather follow for fantasy or just in general what the weather looks like in London. My man Campanelli will chime in and let us know if it's something that we need to be worried about. But as of right now, I think the last I saw was it's a lighter rain. It's always light rain in London. So I like Stafford in that one. In terms of the flex brain bees TV, I'd be lying if I said Chris Moore doesn't really, really speak to me and call to me. I really wish it could be Burden. It could be too. Like, he's certainly the most talented guy on this list by a mile. Every time the ball's in his hand, it's an electric factory. I can't wait to see what he does. But we're talking about a guy that played 23% of the snaps. Until I can see that above 50 even. And granted, then it's like, okay, but on 23% of snaps, he led the team in receiving and catches. Targets per route were insane. I understand all that. I love the kid. I don't understand why Olamide Zaccheaus is playing nearly every down, leading the team in targets last week. It makes no sense to me that you take this electric factory at pick 2. He looks all the part. He's a good blocker. Everyone, you got to block to get the rock. Burden throws that body around and lays people out. I've got a video of him pancaking a guy while out there. I love it. I love the way the guy's playing as a blocker too. So it's hard for me to make sense as to what Ben Johnson's doing. I really wish I think this question will eventually be like Burden, no if and or buts about it. And a lot of people do bring up the Amon-Ra career arc, right? Where even rookie season arc, where he didn't do anything for the first half of the season And then finally, when he got unleashed, he got his opportunity, he went banana land. I could see Burden. I really think he's that talented, especially with the ball in his hand, which is what makes Amon-Ra so special. I don't think he's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I do think that type of trajectory where it's a slow first half and then boom, off to the races, you got to have this guy down the stretch run. That's how I feel about Burden. So if this is like a question where it's like I can only roster one of these guys and then I have to play him in the flex, Burden would be my pick there. I didn't mean to be long-winded for no reason. Like if I can only have one of these guys on my roster. If all three of them are already on your team, Brainy Bees, I got to just go with Bam Knight. He looked fine, Zonovan Knight, last week. The offense as a whole also with Jacoby Brissett. We have no Kyler Murray today. I thought they were very competent. They played a lot more under center, a lot more play action, a lot of things you didn't have to do to just compensate for your short quarterback that's not that good in Kyler Murray. And Jacoby lit it up, 100 more yards than the season high of Kyler Murray in just his first start. So I actually feel like oddly better about this offense. So maybe that's crazy of me. He seems like the surest bet just to find the end zone, to get you're going to get 11 to 15 touches today. The game flow, the risk is that the game flow does get out of hand there against the Packers, and it is a good Packers defense, but I think it's a little overrated Packers defense too. So I like Bam Knight there, even though Chris Moore really, like, I just keep wanting to say Chris Moore, given the fill-in spot against just the best possible matchup you could ever ask for. Bam Knight, I think if I had these three options staring me in the face, I'd probably be going with Bam. So I tried to touch on all three of them and what they bring to the table here. But gun to my head, Brady B's TV, Bam Knight's likely the choice, unless, again, you can only roster one, and then I would just say, screw it. I'd rather have Burden on my team. But give me Bam Knight for those guys, and Stafford for the other one. B, sir, thank you for the super chat as well. Up to 7 super chats. And we, again, haven't even hit any of the news yet because you guys are so kind and generous. Pick one, Io Manor, Marks, or Chuba. Thank you so much, B, sir. I can only pick one of these. I do think it would be Woody Marks, who I did mean to bump in my rankings. I want to make sure I did to account for some of the receiving back research I was seeing on him. So let me just see where Woody Marks lands right here. Woody Marks, I've got to bump him up over Pacheco, over Chubb, and over Chuba for sure. So Woody Marks is going to be the play for me. I have him just under Zonovan Knight, and honestly, I'd probably rather have Marks, just a little more juice there. To me, Travion and Ramondre, 29, 30, 31 Marks, that's kind of where I slide him in right now. And these updated rankings will be at rotostreetjournal.com. But he brings a lot more. Io Manor, Cam Ward might just be complete cheeks. Like he's already calling himself ass. And I'm fully agreeing with everything I've seen. Just complete cheeks so far. And Chuba, I do think, is going to be a distant second to Dowdle. He might just plow his way into the end zone. This could get out of hand, but I like Woody Marks in that one. Just the most juice. If this game's competitive, that's the type of script. He gets a little bit more involved in Seattle, again, being vulnerable to pass-catching running backs. I think that all lines up for him. Mr. Fella, thank you so much for the super chat. Full PPR start, A.J. Brown, Worthy, Bourne, Dobbs, or Chris Moore, starting Kittle as well. I got to go with Worthy on this one. Again, the Raiders allowing some of the most big plays in the league, top 3 in yards per reception allowed, top 3 in like 20-plus pass yard rate. That all, to me, screams Xavier Worthy. I know Kendrick Bourne's close. I know I've been hyping the guy up, but especially if you already had Kittle in, you've already got your 49ers juice tonight. Go for some juice with that Raiders matchup for Xavier Worthy, and that's where I let him rip it up. So I would go with Worthy there. All interesting options, but give me Worthy. Dobbs he has emerged as that like number 1 wide receiver, so it would seem. But any week you suddenly trust that for the Packers when they rip the rug under you, and then Golden will have his 9 targets, and the next week I'll trust Golden, and it's just a whack-a-mole game that if I had Worthy, I wouldn't even consider playing. And Chris Moore, again, what's crazy is out of all these options, if Chris Moore was the highest score, it wouldn't really shock me at all. Chris Moore. And that's how good this matchup is. Like Chris Moore can be this perennial journeyman that only pops up once in a blue moon and pops up in a big way every time he does. But I also would consider him with Xavier Worthy. I don't think this is an insane question to ask, but I have Worthy about 25 spots ahead of him in the rankings. As much as I love the Hail Mary, I don't think you need to throw it. Anthony, and so I would stick with Worthy on that one. And FZ Ware, if Diggs doesn't go, seems like he's gonna, but let's just play the hypothetical. Judy never, Knight, Pacheco, or already using, I was going to say, how about McCaffrey? But you're already using him. It does sound like Egbuka has an actual chance, FCware, to give it a go. And so if I'm in your shoes, I honestly say, like, is Tez Johnson out there? If he is, phenomenal. You're going to just wait this out. I'd rather play Tez Johnson really than any of those three guys if Egbuka's out. And it gives you the bridge to Egbuka. And of course, none of this matters if Diggs does go. You just play him, and you're golden. But if you, in terms of these other guys like Judy, Knight, Pacheco, I think if I had to pick one of those three, it would be Pacheco. You got the Raiders matchup. They should smash. They're trying to establish him more, even though they vulture him in the red zone every time. Still, he'd be my favorite of those three. But to me, I think it's worth trying to get to Egbuka just because of what we've seen from this kid when he is out there, just because this Detroit matchup looks so juicy. And he practiced yesterday. It seems like he might just be one of those crazy recovery time periods. I can play through it. That's always the risk of re-injury and all that stuff. But I'm going to just add like just a hypothetical if Egbuka does play, because I know everybody called him out, but he's only listed as questionable, not doubtful. And again, practice. So if Egbuka was going to play, where would I have him ranked in the shootout style game? I would have Egbuka. I'm putting him in the rankings now. Right, right by Rashee Rice at like wide receiver 12. So to me, the drop off from like Pacheco to Tez Johnson really isn't that big of a drop off. Whereas Egbuka, suddenly he's in your lineup, and now you have a top 12 wide receiver in your lineup. So I would strongly consider finding an option. And let's say Tez Johnson's gone. Honestly, even like if you can put him in the flex, K. Doughton, if not, Cameron Johnson, Sterling Shepard, any receiver catching passes from Baker Mayfield is going to be viable if Egbuka is removed just because of how good Baker's been. So I would really just figure out how can I play this out if we get some rumblings before kickoff and it's like, all right, we know at this point Egbuka is not going to give it a go. Pacheco would be my play if Diggs is out. But if Egbuka is going to give it a go, I would really try to hold that spot with, have your place filler ready from the Bucks is how I would be playing that FZ Ware. Benny T, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Cheers, Benny T. 2 flex PPR. I have Warren and McBride at tight end. Have Dowdle, White, Judkins, and Bijan. Do I sit a running back to start both tight ends? Great question, Benny T. What a loaded. I think the first thing you got to do is package, and especially if you could sell high on a Dowdle or White right now, package those two guys like a Dowdle and a Warren, or even a Dowdle and McBride, whichever one's going to get the deal done for you, and see if you can get like one more elite running back, or maybe you need an elite wide receiver. This is going to be a headache all year. But to me, so you're obviously playing Bijan. That's not a question. Judkins against Miami, no brainer. Lock him in. Rashad White is kind of entered that I can't sit him territory because he's a great touchdown. He's going to score, and it's just a matter of how many yards he has around that. And Dowdle, I'm certainly not benching after a bunch of 200-yard games. So I don't think I sit a running back. I think soon enough you're going to be able to sit Rashad White pretty easily when Bucky Irving's back. But you got to keep riding that wave, in my opinion. So I think I'm playing all 4 running backs here and not benching any of those guys, and I'd only be rolling out 1 tight end. Yeah, I think that's – it feels so crazy to say I'm benching Warren after how good he is. But, I can't bench Dowdle. I can't bench White the way he's playing and set up. And certainly you're never benching Bijan or Judkins right now. So I think, gun to my head, which tight end do I pick? Between McBride and Warren, I'd probably go Trey McBride. I think they're going to be playing catch-up. I think he plays better with Jacoby Brissett. What are the odds that in his only game without Kyler Murray in the last 2 years, he catches a touchdown, And so I think Trey McBride would be the pick. I have him tight end 2. I have Ty Warren tight end 3. I totally understand why the question's being asked, but I think I'm going with all the running backs. Man, it hurts to sit Tyler Warren, though, because he's like a goal line running back plus an elite receiver at the same time. Oh, that's really tough. So if Benny, you wanted to bench a running back, I would say it's Dowdle. Man, do I play Dowdle or Warren? That is a really – you can tell you got me in a pretzel, Benny T. You're certainly playing, again, Bijan, Judkins, White. It then comes down to McBride's going to be your tight end. Warren versus Dowdle is where I boil this down to, and the choice would be, of course, yours no matter what. I think I'm going to stick it out with Dowdle there, but that is a very, very good question, Benny T. Man, Either way, it's a wealth of riches. Like, it's a great problem to have, but that's going to be a headache. And I would try to see if you could package a tight end and a running back to get an elite upgrade somewhere else to somebody's very needy right now. All righty, Wolfpack. 30 minutes in and the 8 super chats. Very generous of all of you. Thank you so much. That got us slightly off track. So I'm just going to quickly rip through the Thursday night football takeaways. The biggest being your Bengals are not dead. Joe Flacco breathing life, resuscitating your Bengals. 342 yards, 3 touchdowns. Some of the most insane touch throws and passes, just looking reborn out of Cleveland now. Awesome to see from Joe Flacco. Awesome to see for your Bengals. In the process, 23 targets for Jamar Chase. Back in that number 1 overall conversation, 16 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. The 23 targets were the 3rd most in NFL history. 16 catches set the Bengal record. Insane. Your 38 PPR fantasy points night. You got to love what you saw, but not to be, forgotten. T. Higgins, 6 catches on 10 targets, 96 yards and a score himself. Could have been about 100 yards and 2 scores. The man was unselfish, got the win for his team, and went down while he was breaking down the field and could have had an easy touchdown. Smart play, unselfish play from T. Higgins. His fantasy owners may have cringed just a little bit if you had him in there, but he still got you his best day of the season by a mile. And Chase Brown, 11 for 108, does also catch a couple balls for negative yardage. It was good to see him having room because this passing game was operating so well. His lanes were massive. I do believe like 90 of those yards were in the first half, though. They kind of abandoned the run when they just had to it opened up and became a shootout. And unfortunately, it did seem like Flacco, not unfortunate for Jamar Chase owners, but for Chase Brown, they were doing like the dink and duck stuff with Jamar Chase. And why wouldn't you do that over Chase Brown? So it does seem like Chase Brown, yes, to stock up in terms of the whole offense looking better, should yield more touchdown opportunities, more space to run. But Joe Flacco in a couple of games here has not targeted more than twice, and I don't know if that will stick and be a trend. Jamar Chase, certainly a vacuum, even more epic proportions. On the other side of things, Rodgers, I think it was something where it's like the 2 oldest quarterbacks to ever be dueling, like the most combined age between it, and he had 4 touchdowns himself, all to tight ends, 2 going to Pat Freiermuth, 111 yards and 5 catches. Seems like he should be on the waiver wire this week. I just don't know if I'll ever trust that Arthur Smith rotation enough because Darnell Washington also had a touchdown and he had more targets. He had, and then you got Jonnu Smith also catching a touchdown. A 3-headed nightmare at tight end doesn't seem great, but they're the only position that can catch touchdowns apparently from Aaron Rodgers. Maybe, just maybe, Freiermuth can re-enter our streaming plans. But DK Metcalf, the man forgotten in the wake of this tight end renaissance, 5 targets, 3 catches, 50 yards, kind of asinine usage. The bigger story for the Steelers was Jaylen Warren dominating the carries and backfield production. They had a pretty close to the same split they had been doing for those weeks, but just all the touches did go and ultimately to Jaylen Warren, who looked great on them. There was one play where you see Rodgers screaming at him on the sideline, maybe missed a block or a communication error, but it didn't result in him getting benched. He just continued to pick it up. 16 carries, 127 yards, in addition to 4 catches and 31 yards through the air. Great night for Jaylen Warren, and you're feeling much better about him and his stock. He just looked like that explosive Jaylen Warren from before. And that's all I got on this game, Wolfpack. Again, thank you so much for listening to those Thursday Night Football takeaways. We did have John. Thank you again for your support consistently here, John, coming in with a $5 super chat. PPR, Mason or Keenan, then Pacheco or Cup, and Kraft or Luke. Thank you. I would be going, so there must be a flex with Mason or Keenan. So Keenan Allen versus Jordan Mason. I'm going to go Jordan Mason. A little bit worried about all these defensive reinforcements coming back for the Eagles, no doubt. But they've been a top 10 matchup for running backs without those guys in. And you've been able to really pound the rock at this team. I think Jordan Mason could be in line for – should get a touchdown. The offense with Carson Wentz has definitely been much more serviceable than with J.J. McCarthy. So I think Mason, a good touchdown bet today, potentially even 2. Whereas Keenan Allen, yes, that secondary is completely destroyed right now. PPR does help you out, but they are solid enough at the nickel corner spot. That's like their number 1 guy, and I don't think they're kicking him outside. The Colts said we're keeping him on the inside, which – again, Keenan should be great today. I think the upside of Mason outweighs that. Just because we've seen Gadsden kind of eating into Keenan Allen's like over the middle field. They ran the same amount of routes last week. Keenan seems to be a little bit on that downward trajectory in my eyes. And on the other one, Pacheco versus Cup. I'm going to go Pacheco. I've said Pacheco a couple more times than I'm comfortable saying on any type of show. But I think if you're not getting in the end zone against the Raiders, when's it happening? This is kind of the do or die. If he doesn't hit this week, there's no reason in rostering this guy at all moving forward, especially with the Chiefs potentially active at the trade deadline. And Kupp, yeah, he's impressed more in terms of his on-field play. But again, one of those game environments that Seattle wants to run the ball, Houston wants to run the ball. Even if they have these explosive weapons outside, I could just see that being kind of battering at each other. And Kupp has had plenty of those days this year where it's like 2 targets, 3 catches, 3 targets, 2 catches, 15 yards. I'd rather have the 12 carries of Pacheco, and I hope one of them gets into the end zone. Kraft versus Luke. You got to stick it out with Kraft. He's just been such a touchdown machine. And I really do like Luke McCaffrey today. But I'm riding Kraft on that one. I'm an absolute touchdown beast. And the track record's just been so good with him throughout the year. So I'm going to go with Tucker Kraft there. John, thank you so much for your consistent support each and every week. Greatly appreciate it. Wolfpack, we got almost 2,000 of you here before we even hit the 40-minute mark. That is unbelievable. Thank you so much. If you enjoy what you're hearing, whether you're on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. If you're new around there and you haven't already joined the channel, we'd love to have you. And if you're on Twitter, please consider hitting that heart button, the likes, the shares, the retweets. It really does help us continue to get out to more people. And of course, these rankings, the link is in the description, but the full updates will be pushed through to rotostreetjournal.com after this show. I'm going to make sure to push one update through right around 9:20 because we have that London game. Always got something going on every single morning, it would seem, the NFL. But yes, that is where you can find that. That's everything I wanted to plug. So let's rip through this news real quickly. Brock Purdy is out. Mac Jones is in, averaging at right around 330 passing yards per game right now. He's had 280 in all 4 games. He's cleared 340 in 2 weeks. Mac Jones has been balling, and he's been feeding Kendrick Bourne. So if you have Bourne, this is also good news for him. And I sure think he can feed George Kittle as well. So very excited to see how that report looks on Sunday Night Football. Kyler Murray questionable, and it sounds like the Cardinals are preparing to start Jacoby Brissett, according to Ian Rappaport, which is actually welcome news for this entire offense. Maybe not Marvin Harrison, who's the only guy who couldn't get it going while Brissett threw for 320 yards, but definitely good news for Trey McBride, probably for the running backs as well, that this offense should have a little bit more juice with Jacoby Brissett. Tough matchup, though, against Green Bay. If I don't have to play Cardinals, I'm not itching to play them because Jacoby Brissett's in, let's put it that way. But it's better if you have to than having Kyler Murray out there. J.J. McCarthy, questionable to play. Sounds like he's going to be the 3rd-string quarterback with Carson Wentz starting. Good news, and that tells you the state of things when it's good news that Carson Wentz is starting, but he's been feeding Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison's been getting there since he returned to the lineup. The offense has just looked a bit more stable. What an insane, renaissance quarterback year. Who would have thought, when there's narratives to last year being the year of the rookie receivers, the year of the ancient quarterbacks is what this one's looking like, right? With Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, all just kind of balling out this year. Seems just that veteran savvy is going such a long way these days. But good news again for the rest of the attack there. In terms of, and we are over 2,000. You'll love to see it. Thank you guys so much. Before we get to the running back news, we did have Vlad coming in with a super chat. Thank you so much, Vlad, for that. Start 2 PPR, Worthy, Vidal, Jameson, and Tet. Oh, great options. This is a tough one. I will say JMO's the last on my list, and that sucks to say because that game projects to be amazing, shootout-style game. They can certainly get the big plays going against Tampa Bay, so I definitely could see it being a JMO night. But it's more so, Vlad, that I like all of your other options that much more. To me, I think I'm going to go Xavier Worthy as my favorite, and sounds crazy to go Kamani Vidal over Tet. But the Jets, they are not good. They have been good at limiting number 1 wide receivers. Sauce is still saucing. I think, gun to my head, I'm going to go Worthy and Vidal on this one and end up benching Tet. I have Worthy and Tet, literally a spot within each other, wide receiver 16 versus wide receiver 17 for Tet. So it's very, very close between those two, but I do think the Jets have very good success against wide receiver 1s. And I think Carolina is itching to just run this ball down the Jets' throat, get in, get out. And so I'm a little bit lower on Tet, just a tad this week. I'm actually going to bump Quentin Johnson and Jalen Waddle Well, that game, that Cleveland game, is looking nasty, so maybe not them. But yeah, I'm going to go Worthy and Vidal. Haskins questionable today, and even if not, it seemed like Vidal has really won that job. So that's where I am leaning on that one. Thank you so much, Vlad, for that super chat. Back to the news. We'll back with 2,100 of you here. Thank you guys so much. So awesome to have such a great audience. You guys are so kind and so happy to have you here. At running back, Josh Jacobs is apparently legitimately questionable. So if you have Josh Jacobs or you have some running back woes, Emmanuel Wilson's still out there in 90% of leagues. Should be strapped to the bench right now because this is a game. I saw he's minus 160 now to score a touchdown, Emmanuel Wilson. That's about as good of the odds as you're going to ever find for a backup running back. That's how highly Vegas respects this run game, this offense as a whole. And so Josh Jacobs, legitimately questionable, according to Adam Schefter, is going to be a game time call. So get out there, add Emmanuel Wilson. Should he be the starter? We can do some of those hypotheticals if you want, like Emmanuel Wilson if he's starting versus XYZ. Feel free to toss some of those in. I'm happy to answer those. The Packers, I just got to double check the Packers game this week. I believe they're in the 4:00 window. Yeah, they are the 4:00 window. So if you have Jacobs, again, Wilson is certainly the best backup plan, but we might not know until after the 1:00 kickoff. So do get yourself a backup plan. If you miss on him, Chris Brooks is also likely to get some burn if Josh Jacobs does miss time. Clint Kubiak saying he wants to get running back Kenneth Walker more opportunities, but does not want to discount Zach Charbonnet or George Oloney. So it seems like a whole lot of nothing. Unfortunately, they're not throwing to the running backs at all, which is really capping the upside because they're splitting it near dead even. Charbonnet's getting the goal line. Walker's looking more explosive. They've become like flex plays at this point at best. Unfortunate for a run game I was really, really excited about entering this year. In terms of other running back news, DeAndre Swift was listed as questionable, but that's more getting maintenance days. He's coming off a season high with the Bears. Seemed like they really worked on the bye week at how we're going to get this run established. They made a change at left tackle. Apparently that left tackle had 100% blocking success rate, so well done. Ben Johnson, the right next man up type of mentality. Looking good there for DeAndre Swift. Haskins, as we mentioned, is questionable, popped up on the injury report midweek. Apparently has practiced in full until Friday, and then he did not practice. So interesting to see. We had Kamani Vidal outtouch him 21-7 anyways, but if he's removed, just that much more reason to feel safe about Kamani Vidal. And then Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard. Chuba is playing. And again, Dave Canales being very coy about we're not going to tip our hand to who's starting and who's going to get the work, while also saying Rico Dowdle breathes life into our scheme. I think that the guy that's giving your life, your offense, actual breath sounds like the choice to me. So to me, Rico Dowdle will be that featured guy. It's just a matter of how big of a slice does Chuba take in his return. Is it 60-40? Is it 70-30, 80-20? And Canales has typically ridden workhorses, so I imagine Dowdle will be getting plenty of work after 473 yards and 2 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. Donovan Knight is off the injury report while DeMarcado is not playing. As we talked about, Bam Knight, kind of that early down back. Not sure that's the best role against Green Bay, but should be in line for about 10 to 12 touches, including the goal line looks. And then Chris Rodriguez not on the injury report for Washington. I think this team's going to really want to run, but certainly Bill has taken over that backfield, so Bill has gotten the upgrade. But Rodriguez being in maybe steals a touchdown is annoying to us fantasy owners. We did have another super chat. Thank you guys so much. Luis Perez saying start Tajay 1 p.m. or wait 4 p.m. Start Wilson, Harvey, or Bam. I think for that one, Lewis, I probably think like Bam and Tajay are just about the same. So I'd probably put Bam in, and then that way, like if we do have Josh Jacobs ruled out, he would be Wilson, the number one option by about 10 spots on this list if Josh Jacobs was to miss time. I'm just going to do a quick hypothetical in my rankings. I'm not going to put Wilson here permanently, but if let's assume Josh Jacobs doesn't play, I would have Wilson probably above Kenneth Walker, like honestly, as the feature back for the Packers. And Wilson's looked very good. So he'd be my running back 24. That's, I think, worth holding it out for because the gap between, maybe I do prefer Tajay to Bam. I'd probably even just have Bam above Tajay anyways, though. Let me see where Tajay's sliding in. Yeah, I had Tajay too low, so I am going to bump Tajay up. Because I do think him and Bam are closer. But even then, I'd prefer Bam. So, if Wilson's not the guy, then I'd prefer Bam anyways. So I don't think I start Tajay quite this week. The Pats haven't allowed a single 50-yard rusher all season. Great run defense. We got Tunes, need 2 running backs and 1 flex. Mason, Vidal, Dowdle, Marks, Charbonnet, Whittington, Meyer. Got hit by Chase, so you need upside. Oof. I'm going to definitely go, if you need upside, you cannot be benching Dowdle after, again, 473 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Sure, Chuba's back, but we've seen what Dowdle can do, and it's a bad Jets defense. So you have to have Dowdle in there. I got to keep going with Vidal as well because, again, you need upside coming off a 170-yard day. Against the Dolphins, everybody can seemingly, I think Tunes, you could get under center and run for 170 against the Dolphins. But Vidal still looked good in the Colts defense. It says they're great against not great, but like 25th in points allowed. But there are some metrics in terms of the DVOA and different things that suggest that they're not that great against the run either. So I like Dowdle. I like Vidal there. And then if we need the highest upside flex, I think I got to stick with Jordan Mason as well, just because you do have that 2+ touchdown upside. I think Whittington does intrigue me, but there's a much bigger chance that Whittington has like 3 catches, 25 yards, does nothing, whereas Mason's like at minimum going to get you that, I think, 1 score. If he gets you 2, then you really hit the jackpot. So I'm probably going to stick with Mason, Vidal, and Dowdle there, knowing that you need upside tunes. Mayer is very intriguing too, and a catch-up narrative. Had led the team in targets and catches last week. Probably Myers is out, but the Chiefs had defended tight end well, and that's another one where it's like he has 2 catches for 15 yards. Damn it, why did I bench a 20-carry running back type of situation? I go Mason, Vidal, and Dowdle tunes. FC Ware with your second super chat. Thank you so much, good sir. Keenan, Waddle, Bourne, MHJ need 2 1/2 PPR. I'm going to go with Waddle and Bourne on this one. MHA really like the only guy that didn't get going with Jacoby Brissett. And I know he got concussed later in the game. But even before then, there were some throws that seemed like he should have come down with them. I haven't been an MHJ guy since those first couple of games. I just didn't see anything that popped. And I haven't really seen anything that's popped that made me want to get back on the bandwagon yet. So to me, I would go, and I'm going to just take Wilson down a notch in my rankings because we don't know quite yet what's going to happen there, but did want to give him that hypothetical punt. Hold on. So I think, give me Bourne, who's just absolutely cooking with Mac Jones at quarterback, 140 in back-to-back weeks. Tougher matchup, sure, against Atlanta, and you got Kittle returning, so there is a hit there. But to me, I have him wide receiver 25 above A.J. Brown, J-Mo, Keenan, and I have Waddle the highest among these wide receivers. Now, I haven't seen the weather quite yet, and I don't know if Campanelle, you saw any weather light to moderate rains will be an issue throughout the game. So light to moderate in London, not bad. Cleveland was the big one to watch in terms of gusts. So that would be the other one to check on. Again, Ken Roth is the guy I like to follow on Twitter for all of that stuff. He marked that as the biggest game. So if that one ends up being a huge concern, you look there, you see gusts, it looks horrible. You guys have that eyeball test. That's the one thing about doing this show early. We don't get those pregame whip-arounds. If it looks awful, FC Ware, I think Keenan's a great pivot. You got the dome, you got a good game environment, a close game, down a lot of corners for the Colts, even if the one that covers Keenan most likely is actually pretty solid. I do think Waddle, if the situation just looks like it's okay rain, it's nothing too crazy, I play Waddle. He's looked like the clear number 1 wide receiver with no Tyreek. He's had great back-to-back weeks. I like riding him right now. But if that weather does end up looking awful, then I would pivot over to Keenan. So right now, Bourne, Waddle. Make sure to check the weather, FC Ware, and if it looks like it's going to be a significant issue that no team's going to throw in, because we know Tua just like cowers in that type of stuff too. So I would go with Miami, Cleveland. General message I want to get across: the worst of the weather comes pregame, but it's still kind of crappy with some wind and rain in game. Gust pregame could be 40 miles per hour. In game won't reach that. I expect winds early game to be around or a bit over 15 sustained. Gust 30. That should drop pretty quickly. That should drop pretty quickly to below 15 mile per hour sustained and gusts around 25. That's very manageable. At the tail end of the game and perhaps after. So it sounds like it's not a humongous concern as of right now. So maybe the pregame whip around would actually fool you. I'm going to say Waddle and Bourne here. FC Ware is where I'm going. JT86TN, Darnold or Jones, and Browns or Rams defense. I would go with Jones, Danny Jones, for sure. He's been cooking. Anytime he runs in for a touchdown, he's scored over 20 fantasy points and been top 7. Granted, when he doesn't run in for one, he's outside the top 15. But this is a great game environment in the Dome. I think the Chargers are going to paste points on the board, and then Daniel Jones will have to chase them. And so I really like Daniel Jones in that one. Browns or Rams? I'm leaning with the Browns on this one. Trevor Lawrence has not been nearly as turnover prone as he was in the past. You got sketchy weather there in Cleveland. Cleveland's defense really swallows up teams at home, especially. I like going with the Browns there. I think you're going to get a lot of sacks onto potential pick 6 stuff. That's what I like. I think the upside's there in that ugly weather game with a defense that can really get after the passer and a passer that's prone to making mistakes when he's pressured. That all sounds good to me. So give me Daniel Jones and give me the Browns defense. Thank you guys again so much for your generosity with the super chats. Let's get on to the wide receiver. Tons of wide receiver news, important wide receiver news at that we will whip through. But you guys are so kind and generous. We're at nearly 2,500 of you to start. We have another super chat right before I get to that. Robert, your second super chat of the day. So kind and generous of you. Thank you so much, good sir, for your support. Terry or Bourne, full PPR long-term. Debo is on bench also. Between these 3, what order? I think we're thinking long-term, Robert, and especially if you don't need to play Bourne this week. Long-term, I'd certainly rather have Terry McLaurin. We're talking about the wide receiver, 10 in points per game last year. Debo's banged up and depends how long this lasts. But it was looking like Debo, the clear number 1 wide receiver. Now it's looking like a guy that's going to be playing hampered. So when Terry comes back in, is he fully ready to go? We'll find out. We'll see. But I don't think Bourne, Kittle comes back. Boom, that's one mouth to feed. Ayuk eventually comes back. Jennings maybe gets healthy. CMC's still there. I think the Bourne magic, it won't completely evaporate, but you're not going to be getting the 14 target, 140-yard days. This might be your last week of getting anywhere close to that. So if this is long-term, and especially if you don't need to start Kendrick Bourne right now, I'd rather have Terry on my roster, no doubt. Even with Debo on the bench, we're talking about a Jaden Daniels-led offense. That's always something I want multiple pieces of. So long-term, I would rank them probably Debo, Terry, then Bourne is how I would rank those guys, Robert, Mitchell, Prophet. Like all 3 for sure, but I do think Bourne is far more of the short-term play right now if you need that. And if you don't need that, Terry would be the better. If I'm looking at the fantasy playoffs, which guy do I think is going to be more impactful to you? Terry, for sure, is how I would play that. Thank you again so much. And Frosty, thank you so much for your super chat. Puka hurt. I need a wide receiver and flex, half point. Trey Tucker, Kendrick Bourne, Alec Pierce, or Shepard, then Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones. This one is definitely Kendrick Bourne for me. I have him about 10 or so spots above any of the other wide receivers that you mentioned. Mac Jones, again, absolutely cooks with Kendrick Bourne. And I know Atlanta is going to be the toughest secondary that they face, but that rapport is great, and Kyle Shanahan just knows how to shake him free. 11 targets, 9 targets in back-to-back weeks, 142 yards in back-to-back weeks, top 10 PPR wide receiver finishes in back-to-back weeks for Kendrick Bourne. Wide receiver 6, wide receiver 11 across his last 2 games, 24 and 19 full PPR points. You're doing half points, so let me go back to that and it's not going to be much different. Wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 11. And then Trey Tucker, very intriguing, especially if Myers is out. We know Bowers is doubtful. I like that they're going to chase points and need him probably to step up. But Bourne, if we saw that 40-point day from Trey Tucker, I think we're not going to see anything close to that type of ceiling the rest of the year. So I can't say he's without ceiling, but to me, Bourne's seems more we've seen it back-to-back weeks now, whereas we got that one big flash in the pan for Tucker. And we've had some pretty okay days since then, but Bourne is he's the next closest Tucker, but Bourne I have about 5 to 10 spots above him. And then I got to go with Baker Mayfield there. I know his banged-up core, but he might even have Egbuka back for this game. You got Detroit secondary that's down to their 3rd or 4th string corners, completely decimated by injuries. Got Monday night shootout style feel, 52.5 over under, and I'm hammering the over in that game. I think we're going to have a points bonanza on Monday Night Football, and I want any piece I can get of that, and Baker Mayfield would be included there. So I go Baker over Daniel Jones for sure. Frosty. Thank you for the support. And thank you, RM, for the support. 17 super chats. We haven't even hit the first hour yet. You guys are so kind and generous. Thank you so, so much for your support, guys. Nita Flex, Harrison, Bourne, Shaheed, Dobbs. We're sticking with Kendrick Bourne, baby. Again, and maybe it's just because the last couple of weeks I've had Bourne as like a poster boy, and every time I say, you know what, I'm going Bourne here, he doesn't seem to fail me. But again, 19 and 17 points in back-to-back games, 140 yards in back-to-back weeks, 20 targets across his last 2 games. Kittle returns, tougher defense. I don't expect 140 yards again, but could he get to 70, 80, maybe even 100? Sure. That's in Bourne's realm of possibility today. Marvin Harrison, yes, better with Brissett. Still don't love or trust him if I don't have to. Shaheed, big play guy, could blow up any given week. Dobbs could catch 3 touchdowns and could evaporate that Packers rotation. Bourne seems like the one where it's like, I'm going to get 8 targets. What's he do with it? But with Mac Jones at quarterback, I still feel good about Bourne giving you at least one more very solid game. All righty, guys. We got one more. Chief Perp, thank you so much, guys, for your generosity. Pick 2 full PPR, Nico, Judkins, Adams, or Rome. Oh, Chief Perp, my heart is breaking. I have to tell you to bench 2 of these guys. I feel like you can't bench Judkins. I know last week was down and ugly, but you get Miami. I mean, Miami just gets demolished. Dowdle going for 270 yards. Kimani Vidal going for 170 last week. There isn't a team that the Dolphins have stopped on the ground, but really in any facet of the game, Judkins is going to steamroll this team. It's very rare you get the Browns as a favorite. So this is like one of those few times, like Judkins as a favorite, they're just pounding the rock. Let's do it. So to me, Judkins, but then I'm like, okay, but Devontae Adams has no Puka. You have to play him. Rome's been out of his mind, but out of these 4, he's the first guy I bench. I think I'm going Adams and Judkins. Nico would be the third for me here, but it sounds like Seattle's getting a lot of their secondary reinforcements back. And while Nico's been very solid these last 4 weeks, 13, 18, 10, 14, there just hasn't been that eruption upside. Whereas like Adams has the main vein for Matthew Stafford today, eruption. Judkins against the worst run defense that we've seen in a long time, eruption. Whereas like Nico, yeah, you got your 14 solid, but not eruption. Rome could erupt too against the Saints defense, very bad at pressuring quarterbacks. When Caleb Williams has time to throw, it's always deep to Rome. I'm very scared of benching him, but he's like the 4th on this list. I actually kind of like him a little bit more than Nico, if I'm being honest with myself here. But Adams and Judkins, to me, I think a tier above the other 2, which is nuts. The other 2 are incredible options. You must have a ridiculous team, Chief Perp, but I'm going Judkins and Adams of those options. Powerhouse, what's going on? Thank you again for your support. Needs running back help. Is Pickens for Mason fair? I don't think so. If you're desperate, sure, I guess. But to me, you're selling very low on Pickens. Yes, CeeDee comes back. Yes, CeeDee's always going to be a number 1 in an offense when he's there. I think this is certainly an offense similar to Puka and Devontae Adams, where more 2 mouths is more than plausible. Maybe Ferguson ends up hitting a little bit of a hit. But I think this offense could sustain 3 mouths because the defense is that bad. We've seen it with the Bengals where they're just constantly chasing points. That's what we got going on here in this Dallas offense. The defense cannot stop anybody. And so we're going to have shootout after shootout. I think Pickens is going to be more than viable. Meanwhile, Jordan Mason, you got maybe 1 or 2 more weeks before Aaron Jones comes back to the lineup. And now you're back to a committee. And he's been fine. Mason's been good, but Pickens has been out of this world. Even in the number 2, this is a genie you can't put back into the bottle. I think this offense is just going to go banana land with both these guys in the lineup. I think Pickens is still a top 25, 30 asset, and Mason's more of a 50 there's probably a 20 to 30 player gap between those guys, in my opinion. So I guess it's a matter of how desperate are you for that running back help, and do you need it now? Are you 2-4 and about to die if you don't get your running back this week? Then okay, if you have to do it, you have to do it. But I still think like Pickens and Emmanuel Wilson this week, you find that Band-Aid, you keep Pickens, and then you kind of figure it out. I wouldn't do that deal, Powerhouse, unless I was like completely on death's door in my fantasy season. And even then, I think I'd figure out a way to patch it up because Pickens could give me a better shot at living in fantasy. RJ Baconi, thank you so much for your super chat. JK, Tet, Rico, Evans, bench one. Not easy to bench one of these guys either. I got to play Rico again. I just don't see a world where Chuba Hubbard commands more than 40%. And if this is 60-40 and Dowdle looks as good as he's looked against the Jets, you're going to still get there. I mean, Evans, it sounds like he's trending towards definitely going to be in. And so to me, I can't bench him in a shootout style game. Monday Night Football, potentially the only real like number one wide receiver. And there's the rumblings of to get his 1,000 yards again, the team knows he needs like 78-ish yards per game. Why not get 200 of them on Monday night against a decimated Detroit secondary? Evans is in my lineup. There's no doubt about it. So I'm going Evans, Rico. It comes down to JK versus Tet. Who am I going to bench? I feel like I'm just a little bit souring on Tet. I heard those stats about, wide receiver ones. The Jets have been a bad defense, but wide receiver ones are the position that aren't getting it done against him right now. And sure, Tet had his big day against the Cowboys. Everybody has their big days against the Cowboys. So I'm bumping Tet a little bit in the rankings here. I think I got to go with JK against the Giants. That seems like a positive script right there. So give me Rico, give me Evans, give me JK, benching Tet. Great options, RJ. Don't want to bench Tet, but you just got too many good players there. Andrew Myers, May or Hurts? Call me crazy, call me a homer. I'm going Drake May, baby. I mean, he looks unbelievable. Still leading the league, if I'm not mistaken, in completion percentage, like EPA per play. And just the pocket awareness every week, like getting better at dodging a guy. And he's so patient and lets the guys get deep downfield and then uncorks the. As a Pats fan, if you can't tell it, I am horny as hell for Drake May. Absolutely love this guy. I think he is the next coming. And coming is used intentionally here. I love Drake May. I'm sorry for the vulgarity, but I am so happy about this guy right now. And yeah, I play him. I have a student. I don't answer the question that way at school that has Drake May or Hurts, and I told him I'm going Drake May 10 out of 10 times this week. Tennessee is just a god awful team. Doesn't get after the passer at all. So with May all day to throw, you got the Vrabel revenge narrative. Like this team canned me while I was turning the franchise around. I think the Pats go in there and they just try to pound points. And everybody worried about the interim bump and the regression coming for New England. And maybe it hits and I look like an a-hole and you guys all can laugh at me, which I'm sure you gladly would do. I think if we cannot come in there and just steamroll the Titans, then we're not as good as I think we are. And I think we're very good. I love this Pats team. And I think Drake May comes in there and he puts up points. So I'm going to go Drake May here. And then in terms of the receiver, I do think it's going to be a Saquon day for what it's worth in the Eagles as well. Pick one receiver, one flex. BTJ, JMO, Evans, Jordan Mason, Scat, Worthy, or wait on Emeka. Oof. Another, to me, again, man. I'll tell you this, Andrew. Your question is prompting me to bump Evans ahead of BTJ because that's how I feel here. Man, this is tough. I would say, man, I'm limiting it down. I'm not going to do JMO. I'm not going to do Jordan Mason. I'm going to cut Worthy even from this conversation. It comes down to BTJ, Evans, and Scat. Man, I'm not going to wait for Emeka either because if you're playing Evans, I mean, there's going to be a world where you can definitely play both these guys as the season progresses. But right now, I don't think I'd risk a hamstrung Emeka potential re-aggravation. So let's lock in Evans. From there, Scat versus BTJ. It's just so hard to bench Scatabo off of a 3-touchdown day. Despite knowing you got the Broncos, a tough run D, tough defense in general. I got to keep riding that man. He is an absolute bull. I don't know if you heard this. I don't know if this was fake or not. I think there was an interview with his mom. And she talked about how he would strap on a helmet as a little kid while his brothers were out playing football. And he would put on a helmet and just start running into telephone poles. And it's like, oh, that checks, that clears. Not shocking at all. And it's just a walking concussion, but he's unbelievable. So much energy. he's going to probably get into the end zone. And even in a bad game script, we've seen him have 6-7 catch days. He is the offense right now, him and Jackson Dart. I like Scatterbo. I got to go with him. So give me Scat, give me Evans there. That's how I'd play that one, begrudgingly benching BTJ as he's starting to pick it up. But if I can see it, I will see it one more time. And you got good enough options here, Andrew, to see it. So give me Evans, give me Scat. Great options, great team. Very tough decisions every week, I'm sure, for you. And then give me Drake May again over Hurts. With my bias, my homerism fully acknowledged. So if you want to go Hurts, you think I'm a nut bag, fair enough. But, I mean, we're going to pile the points on, I think, in Tennessee today. So let it rip. All righty, guys. That wraps up the Super Chats. Thank you again so much. Over 20 Super Chats, 21 right now, to start the day. You guys are so kind and generous. It is so greatly appreciated. It goes such a long way. But almost 3,000 of you here, and we're just about an hour in. You love to see it. 2,900. I have misspoken. Please consider hitting that thumbs up button. It would mean the world. And we are trying to make our climb to 5K subscribers. We're very close, I believe, to 4,700. Any new subs would be so greatly appreciated as well. That like button on Twitter, the heart button on Twitter, rather, and the retweets, shares, all that stuff really helps us grow. And, of course, RotoStreetJournal.com is where you can find my rankings. I have a best streamers article of the week up there right now and tons of other great content. Our writers are phenomenal. I love all the stuff they put out every week. It's I truly think some of the best in the game, and it's all free. So check out RotoStreetJournal.com as well. The link to these rankings will be in the description. In fact, I'm going to just push through a quick updated ranking set because we do have London football about to kick off. And I just want to make sure some of these changes that I've been talking about get pushed through. So give me just one more second to get that through. As we do that, I can rip through the remaining wide receiver news. And yep, I don't have anybody in that shouldn't be in. Perfect. So that is out. I'm just putting the code in so that these are ready to go on the website. Now, there might be some more changes between now. I always think I'm done for the day. Out getting cider donuts with the daughter, and then suddenly, Dan Knight is announced as the starting running back for the Cardinals. And sorry, honey, do you mind taking the daughter? I got to make sure that these rankings have damn Knight in them. Yes, that is a picture of our last Sunday. But something will probably change, so make sure to bookmark them. I'll tweet out at RotoStreetWolf any new updates that happen between now and then. But this is the Sunday morning update heading into kickoff. So this will be as fresh as can be. I'm just pushing it through. Thank you again, guys, so much for your patience. But with the competition and all that stuff, if you don't get these in, they can really penalize you. So I'm just going to make sure that gets in. And now we are back, ready and loaded. So, again, that's in the description, but RotoStreetJournal.com is where you can find all of those rankings. It does look like another super chat came in. Phil, thank you so much. And I will say this, with 9:10 right now, a loaded mailbag, I'm going to probably take 5 more minutes to get through wide receiver news and tight end news. But if you have a question referring to either Rams or Jags, I apologize in advance if I don't get to it ahead of kickoff. The only way to probably guarantee that would be a super chat. I never like to ask for super chats, but I just won't know. A lot of you might be asking about Brian Thomas. We had a question about Devontae Adams, which blows my mind, and it was him. But if you do have a question related to that and you really want an answer, it would mean the world to get the support. And also, I want to make sure you get it in. I don't know that you will if you don't super chat. And I feel like a jerk just even saying it, but I just want to make sure that that preface is given. Phil asking Pittman or Worthy. I'm going to go with Worthy on this one. Again, I know Rice is coming in. I expect Rice to walk right into a target hog role. And even still, I think Worthy can definitely get there. The attention getting dragged away from him as well should open up some deep shots down the field. And he's looked really solid since coming back from those injuries. And the Raiders, giving up top 3 in terms of big plays allowed, yards per reception, all that good stuff. So it fits what he does. I like that game environment for Pittman. He fits also really well what the Colts are going to want to do, how you attack the Chargers. They play a ton of zone, ton of deep safeties, and just let you bleed them down. That's certainly Pittman's game. But even still, I would lean into Xavier Worthy there is my play. Thank you again so much for the super chat, Phil. Let's wrap up this wide receiver news. But again, 3,100 of you here. We're on pace to break new records. I think 33 live is the record, 3,300. We're still on pace for that. A thumbs up button on Twitter or YouTube will help us continue to reach that goal. Let's whip through this wide receiver news really quickly. CeeDee Lamb, not on the injury report and not on your bench. There's no world you could possibly bench him right into the top 5 wide receivers for me and in the conversation for number 1 receiver rest of year moving forward, as long as he is healthy. We've seen this team put up points. But speaking of maybe the number 1 wide receiver the rest of the year, given that Puka Nacua, team is very optimistic that he will be back after the Week 8 bye. He is out today. I wrote about Jordan Whittington as a potential fill-in. I prefer Luke McCaffrey, who we're going to talk about next. But either way, seems like Puka will be back for you in Week 9, which is great news. Mike Evans didn't practice Friday, but then comes back on Saturday and is trending towards being in. And they've really rested his hamstring. Should be fully ready to go against a decimated Lions secondary. Egbuka is seen practicing and actually a game time decision now, which shocks me. Both of these guys would be lineup locks. And I think Tez Johnson is a great stash if you want to see and can you get a bridge. Because if one of them's out, Tez would be that next big playmaking type of upside receiver with the other guys out. So he could be your bridge to either of these guys. Quentin Johnston, not on the final Los Angeles injury report. He's right back into my top 20 wide receivers. The Colts are down their top 3, maybe even top 4 corners at this point, and it seems just like a ripe walk right back into a monster day. I think Quentin blows up today. But some of the more shocking news, adjusted for it in the rankings already, is that Deebo Samuel is officially out. It seemed like he was practicing limited, might be able to get this one in, and ultimately he will be held out. Luke, the question is who benefits in the absence. And this is, as your guess is as good as mine type of situation, but I read it as a Luke McCaffrey spot. Either way, the reason we have to care about this one deeply, and I want to spend just a few minutes, not even a few minutes, just let's talk about it real quick, is the Cowboys defense is abysmal. Most points allowed to wide receivers by a country mile. And if you even do schedule adjusted fantasy points to show how much better receivers have done, they've added 14 more points total to their scoring. They're averaging 14 more points per game when you face the Cowboys secondary, which is historically bad adjusted fantasy points per game. And now they're going to be down Trayvon Diggs and a safety. So it's going to be ugly. Ultimately, though, like who is Jay Daniels going to throw to? So we know that somebody's going to catch passes. Somebody's going to blow up from this wide receiver core. It seems like a no-brainer. I do think, and I guess you could call it tight end news too, I think Zach Ertz is your lead candidate for the target hog role. 16 targets in the playoffs last year. We've seen those type of 10-plus target days out of Ertz when needed. I have him at tight end 6. I have him as a you must play Zach Ertz this week type of tight end. But in terms of the wide receivers, which is what really smashes this team, I do think it's Luke McCaffrey. If I had to pick one, he's certainly the highest upside guy. We've seen 3 touchdowns across his last 4 games on just 8 touches total. 14, 10, 6, and 10 points in his last 4 games. And again, on under 40% of the routes, that's the issue, is how much field time does he get? But at this point, they've only got 3 healthy receivers. It's him, it's Jalen Lane, and it's Chris Moore. Chris Moore has that veteran savvy. He scored last week, 5 targets, 3 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. I think he's very viable. He's in my top 46 wide receivers. Luke McCaffrey, though, goes into my wide receiver 37 spot. Big play threat that I do think everyone's saying the layup role, the design stuff, it's going to go to the rookie Jalen Lane, who's also a viable sleeper. Don't get me wrong. But to me, I think McCaffrey can also do all that stuff while also stretching the field, while if you're going to design your passing game around one of your weapons, I think it's the guy that has the McCaffrey blood in him. Maybe that's just a short-sighted take, and I'm just looking at name, and I know him and Christian are not the same person, but he's got juice. We've seen the juice. In 4 straight weeks, we've seen these big plays, and now you have the chance to really show him off. And what can you do, Luke? Step up for us. Let's see what you got. And I think he answers the call. I added him in every league. I'm not playing him in all of them, but especially if I'm just stashing it, he's the highest upside option. If he goes off for 10 catches and is deadly with the ball in his hands, like, now we got something. And that was his calling card in college. It was dangerous in space and dangerous with the ball in his hands. And that's what Cliff Kingsbury does so well. Again, 45 points to the wide receiver position, nearly 14 more than their season-long average, and they're down 2 secondary members. Somebody's going to go crazy. Any of these guys are viable if you're looking for the punts, but I would rank them again. Luke McCaffrey, then Chris Moore, then Jalen Lane. Your guess, again, is as good as mine, though. I just think it's a situation to attack either way. Christian Kirk is going to be out for the Texans. I think Jaden Higgins, who scored a touchdown the last time we saw him in action before the bye, he's now viable. Jalen Noel scored a touchdown last time we saw it for the bye. He's viable too. I just think this is the time of the year out of the bye, you start to bump your rookies anyways. And they're on Monday night. So this is one of those things, especially if your league allows that roster churning. Keep these guys in mind for your stream. You can cut Jadon, the guy that should be cut already. Let's say you got a bench stash, Luke McCaffrey, and he does flop. He doesn't do anything. Cut him for one of these Texans guys if you're allowed to churn your roster. And if not, no worries either. But definitely could see some upside coming out of either of them. We talked about MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr., off the injury report. Helped out, should be, by Brissett, but he's the one guy that couldn't really get it going. But his ceiling is better. With him, Stephon Diggs, questionable, but it seems like he's expected to go because he was full on Friday, trending the right way. We have Calvin Ridley out. Io Manor should be the guy that gets the bump. Van Jefferson's the one who we saw last week at 6 targets, 4 catches, 75 yards. He's a desperation punt play, but as we've talked about, any of the Commanders guys against the Cowboys I'd prefer. I'd prefer Jordan Whittington. I'd prefer Tez Johnson. There's a lot of other options than the Titans is where I'm going. We know Juwan Jennings is off the injury report despite having ankle, ribs, and shoulder issues. Ricky Pearsall is out. Kendrick Bourne light him back up with Mac Jones under center. And then DJ Moore, none on the injury report. Despite being hospitalized, it seems like it was a testicular issue. Poor guy. That sounds miserable. But it sounds like he will be out there blocking for now Luther Burden's ascension, but I still think he is a mustache as of right now. And then Myers, I don't believe we've gotten any updates on Jacoby quite yet, but he was questionable. To me, it seems likely he gets held out for trade bait, and they don't want him to get hurt and ruin their chances at moving him. So I don't think he plays. I think Trey Tucker gets the bump up. And, of course, Michael Mayer makes an intriguing streamer as well. We have a couple more notes, but 2 super chats did come in. Sugar Smack, the double super chat. You didn't need to do that. Thank you so much for sending that in twice. If you need the refund, let us know because you did not need to do it twice. We would have found your question for you. But thank you again so much for double tapping that. How close is it between Mason and Vidal? Also, Snickers or Milky Way from Sugar Smack. And I love the cereal, by the way, Sugar Smack, as good as it comes. It's as close as can be between Mason and Vidal. I won't even lie. Like, those two in particular, I have them 20 and 21, and I have changed them both throughout the week. One day, it's even 1 minute. I continue to flip-flop between them. Vidal, to me, is the true ceiling play, especially if Haskins ends up getting ruled out. He's also the greater risk of just like flopping, and it was just, everybody goes off against the Dolphins, and Vidal's nothing special, and the Colts are pretty okay against the run. They're fine, and he gets stuffed. He's the bigger risk of a 0 to me, but I don't think you're going to get that, especially if Haskins is ruled out. Mason, though, also does have multi-touchdown upside. We've seen it a couple times. The Rams have been getting, or rather the Eagles have been getting decimated, but they do return Jalen Carter. They return, who's the other defensive lineman? Either way, defensive troops are arriving for the Eagles, which should make this run D significantly better than the one that's been a doormat these last few weeks. So that does make this very tough. Gun to my head, so how close is it between them? If to answer your question, it couldn't be closer. It's causing me nightmares. I truly, Sugar Smack, have gone back and forth on those 2 running backs specifically all week. There's truly never been like as close as that. Usually I'm like, okay, ultimately I'm going to go this guy. I still, as of this minute, do not know which one I actually prefer. But it gun to my head, if I'm hitting the enter button and it's entering right now, it's going to be Mason. But man, it's tough. Talk to me at 1 o'clock. We'll see who I go. And definitely Milky Way to me. For some reason, I don't love nuts in my can. I don't mind them, but I think that the smoothness of the nougat and the caramel, I don't need that to get interrupted by nuts. I just want that melt in my mouth, like deliciousness. I might have to buy a Milky Way now. Sugar Smack. Great question, though. And certainly, again, it could not be closer between those guys. Good morning, Mountain Man. Thank you so much for your consistent support of your boy over here. Good morning, full PPR. Pick 2. Worthy, Rice, QJ, Allen. It's definitely 110%. Rashee Rice, that's the one we won't ask about, and certainly in full PPR, even more boosted. Now, we had a question very similar, Mountain Man. In fact, it was almost exactly the same to this. where I do have Worthy higher than Quentin Johnston, but I don't know if I need to put every single egg into that Chiefs receiver basket. It's not a bad basket to have them. They're going to put up their points against the Raiders. But Quentin Johnston, I want some juice. You have 2 Chargers receivers here too. They get the decimated Colts secondary that's down to their 4th and 5th string corners. That I think it was the Pat. What's his last name? He won $1 million playing best ball. He's great. One of my favorite guys in the space. So great that I can't even remember his name. I listen to him literally every week. Him and Rich Rebar do a phenomenal Angles and Upside podcast. And Pat Corain. I don't know why that one slipped my brain so much. Great show called Legendary Upside. And they talked about like the PFF grades for the corners and for the Colts. I think the highest is like 99th out of 110, the highest. So, I mean, and that's not great. That's in terms of ranking. Like they're like 30 grade. They're horrible. And so I think this is going to be a big Quentin Johnston day. So while I think I might just bump Quentin Johnston over Worthy because I think that's actually how I value them, even if it wasn't that you had both of them in. But especially when you have both Chiefs guys, I would pivot to Quentin Johnston. And honestly, I think I have Quentin Johnston at this point higher. The more I've talked about it, the more I've talked about those secondary injuries. Yeah, I'm just going to bump him up. I love Quentin Johnston today. So give me QJ, give me Rice as my 2 options there, Mountain Man. Thank you again so much for the support. There's just a couple other wide receiver nuggets. Josh Downs being out is why Alec Pierce was in my streamer article. Again, you can find that at rotostreetjournal.com, the streamers there. Josh Downs will be out. I know Pierce is not a 1-for-1 fit. He's actually more of a deep threat, and that's what the Chargers defend against well, but he did work on his short game all offseason. I think that this Chargers defense has been struggling. He is a red zone threat, a big body as well. So I do like Alec Pierce as a desperation play. Behind, of course, again, McCaffrey, my favorite, Whittington, my next. But Alec Pierce is up there. I'd play probably Chris Moore over him, though, too. Sounds like the Falcons feel good about Darnell Mooney. He could be a guy you add later tonight just to put on the bench and see what happens. He has a 12 target. He's only played 2 games, and one of them he had 12 targets. So he's a threat. And last week with him out, we only saw 2 total targets go to the other receivers not named Drake London, and 0 of them were caught. So Mooney certainly could walk right back into a healthy role. Jalen Coker, though, I'd probably rather see what he does against the Jets, at least to start the day. Coming off the IR, will play. And this is a team that's locked down the Jets, the number 1 receivers, and then allowed everybody else to just decimate them. So I think Jalen Coker, desperation play. Love him at 425 to score a touchdown today as well. Zay Jones, questionable. Seems like he will be active, and he and Brissett had that backup kind of rapport, the connection going between those guys. So there's something to be said, too. The guy you practice with, the guy you're always throwing to, meaning more to you. We've seen that happen. And Zay Jones, with so many good dart throws, I don't think I have to go there. But, again, this is a week where there is just so many viable streamers. So you got to get dirty in some of these leagues, and there's plenty to get into the weeds with. For sure. Tutu is off the injury report as well for this morning. And then Josh Reynolds is not on the injury report. Another one of those guys talked about in a lot of these sleeper streams. Not for me necessarily. Alrighty, guys. That wraps up our receiver news. Krana hitting with a super chat. Thank you so much, Krana, for your support. DJ Moore or Kendrick Bourne? It is Bourne all day for me there. Moore should be fine. He's off the injury report apparently. Still a little sketched out that he was hospitalized. Still a little sketched out that Luther Burden looks way better. So give me Kendrick Bourne, 20 targets the last 2 weeks, 280 yards, 140 yards in back-to-back games. The guy's balling. He's great with Mac Jones. Yes, Kittle's back. Yes, the matchup's tougher. No, I don't expect 140 yards. I still think he can eat in this Shanahan scheme. And then Jacobs, Swift, Bill, pick 2. Jacobs might make this easy for you. He might not play. And if he does play, it's Jacobs and Bill. If he doesn't play, it's Bill and Swift. And maybe you could get Emmanuel Wilson. I'd still have Swift and Bill over Emmanuel Wilson myself. So you got to follow the news on this one. I would make sure Krana to be stashing Emmanuel Wilson. But even if he's out, I'd rather have Swift and Bill than Emmanuel Wilson. But assuming Jacobs is in, you play the guy. He's an absolute monster. He's been a stud all year. Give me Jacobs. Give me Bill. Unless Jacobs is ruled out, in which case I'm going to stick to Swift and Bill on that one. Great options, though. Great backfield. And thank you again so much for your super chat. To wrap up wide receiver, we did wrap up wide receivers. So just a couple quick tight end notes, but on some studs is George Kittle activated off the IR, will be playing against the Falcons tonight. I am so stoked. I've been waiting for this guy all year to get back there. That first quarter was such a tease. He looked so good. Tonjes has been balling out in his absence, and I just cannot wait to see what a guy like Kittle is doing with that type of usage, with Mac Jones averaging over 320 yards per game right now. I am stoked to see George Kittle back in my lineup tonight. Oh, baby, I can't wait. Brock Bowers, doubtful to play, seems to be trying to ruled out. They have their bye in week 8. The goal being, maybe we rest him for 3 to 4 weeks, and now he's fully healthy. Fantasy owners at this point should probably be hoping he just rests and you get the guy that you drafted in round 2. That first 3 quarters looked insane. He had 125 yards against the Patriots, was balling out like a true wide receiver 1, suffered that injury, just has not been the same guy. Hopefully we can get close to that again, but I'm guessing he will rest. Then you get the bye, and then hopefully your round 2 pick looks okay. Zach Ertz was questionable. He will be activated, and he might be in line for 16 targets. It's what he saw. That might seem like hyperbole. He saw that in their playoff game last year, and now you remove Terry, you remove Debo. I think Ertz will be very heavily leaned on. He's a must-start tight end for me this week. Tight end 6, about 4 spots above the ECR there. Njoku is out against the Dolphins, which does make Harold Fannin very, very intriguing. A stat I heard that is absolutely insane is that Dylan Gabriel has the yardage totals for Dylan Gabriel. 44% of them is gone to tight ends. Now you remove Njoku, and Fannin has been an absolute beast. Even just last week, 7 catches, 80 yards, 10 targets. Yeah, the Miami, the weather there in Cleveland, not great. Miami's given up a ton of points to every position, including tight ends. I really, really like Harold Fannin. The weather sounds like it will be a worry, but not a dire situation. And then Jatavian Sanders is off the injury report, but that doesn't really matter to any of you. So let us now, Wolfpack, move in to the mailbag. Thank you guys so much for your patience. So many great super chats. You guys are so kind and generous that it took us an hour and a half to get to the actual mailbag at this point. Thank you again so much. 3,500. We're at a live record right now with 3,500 of you. I think 4,000 would be absolutely insane. I don't think we'll ever get there, but you never know. And a way to help us out would be that thumbs up button on YouTube, the heart button on Twitter, the likes, the shares, the retweets. It helps us do so much. Thank you so much. And if you're new out there and you haven't hit subscribe, we go live before Thursday games and Sunday games to always answer your questions. And we'd love to have you be a part of it. If you are enjoying what you hear, please hit the sub button. And last thing to promote at 3,500. If I have as many in front of you, I got to let you guys know these rankings are always live and updated at rotostreetjournal.com, as is so much other content. I have a new streamers waiver wire flex desperation play article up there I wrote yesterday. I added that Luke McCaffrey is my top guy there, but breaking that all down in that article, who are some of my favorite desperation streams of the day. So if you want to check that out, it would mean the world as well. But thank you again so much for being here. Let us dive now in to the mailbag. If you need to jump ahead, of course, those super chats are still valid, but you guys have already been so kind and generous. Thank you again so much for that. All righty. We got Toby asking McMillan, Coker, Io Manor, Worthy, Chris Moore, Bam Knight needs 3 out of this list. Let's dive in for you, Toby. I would definitely be playing Worthy. I would definitely be playing McMillan. I'm assuming it's Tet McMillan, Toby. Those two are head and shoulders above the rest. And then it's like, okay, which of these is your favorite streamer from here? This is how I would – I know it sounds like I'm hedging, but this is where it's important. If you're a favorite, you're just need the 8-ish, 10 points. Bam Knight's probably your best bet to get that. If you want the blow up, if you need some upside, you face Jamar Chase, you're down 30, you want a Hail Mary. Chris Moore is actually like the ancient Chris Moore. But we've seen I've been playing fantasy long enough that I've seen Chris Moore have like 150-yard, 2-touchdown days. I'm not even kidding. Like, it's happened before. And now he is facing the worst pass defense in the league, and he has Jane Daniels throwing him the rock. And he had a touchdown last week. Like, if I need ceiling, I'm going to Chris Moore for that third one. But if I'm a favorite and I feel okay about where I'm at, Bam Knight's safer. You're going to get 11 to 15-ish carries. He's got a decent enough shot at a touchdown, especially with Jacoby Myers leading the charge. But man, if I need that upside, like, and Chris Moore is far more likely to get you 1 catch, 3 yards, and you're like, why the hell did anybody even bring this guy up? I understand that, but I do think I need some juice. Chris Moore, somehow there's actually juice to be squeezed out of it. I don't even, how old is Chris Moore? I Chris Moore, Commander's age. He's got to be getting up there. Oh, he's only 32. For some reason, I thought this guy was like Jerry Rice coming back from the dead. He's not even that old. 32, a young, spry 32-year-old Chris Moore. But hey, I've seen it before. He's had the upside, but most times I'm going to go Bam Knight. If you need the upside, though, you can pivot to Chris Moore there. All righty. Kevin Brooks, good morning to you, sir. Just got here. Did you answer wide receiver? I answer any questions, Kevin Brooks. Any that you ask. You might have just heard a lot of the wide receiver news. But yes, I always will hit any wide receiver questions you got. My man Droid sitting at 5-1. Thanks to you boys. Thanks to you, sir. You're a beast. Traded away J.K., Shaheed, and Danny Dimes for Action Jackson and James Cook. How do you guys pull these deals off? Like that's why I tell everyone you got to toss out the trade offers, because I can't imagine a world where I would trade away Lamar Jackson and James Cook for Shaheed, Dimes, and J.K. Dobbins. There's not Action Jackson, way better than Danny Dimes. James Cook, way better than J.K. Dobbins. So all you had to add was Shaheed. You buried him in that trade, Droid. This is why you're going for that too, Pete. Well done. He must have been desperate and needed somebody to start for him now. I got to be trading more. If these type of trades are possible, insane. Well done. All righty, Droid. Start 2 flex and 2 quarterbacks. Javonte, Bourne, Rico Suave, and Luke. Fields or Bryce. So with the quarterbacks, there's only 2 that you gave me. So if I had to pick one of Fields or Bryce, it would be Fields. I just never want to play Bryce Young. Yeah, I'm worried about Fields getting benched and the floor is 0, but when he faces bad teams, especially against the run, he should be okay. The Panthers' run D actually is taking a better step forward than I've given him credit for, too. But I like Fields either way. When you're going to Bryce Young, there's just nothing I want there. And then I got to go Javonte, no doubt about it. The Commanders' run D was okay starting this year. They were actually pretty good, and we just saw them get absolutely demolished this last week out. Javonte has been a bell cow. Great bet to score a touchdown at some point. And I'm going Rico Suave. I'm sticking with that. Again, 470-plus total yards these last 2 weeks. Chuba comes back, yes, but I don't think that genie gets put back in the bottle. So give me Javonte, give me Rico. And if there's multiple quarterbacks, then you have only 2 there, but Fields would be my preferred guy there. Casey Craig, what I'm contemplating right now, Evans, Rico, or Mason. I need to sit one. Who would you all sit? I'd sit Jordan Mason is who I would sit there. I got to play Rico still, despite Chuba being back, and I'm not sitting Mike Evans. You also have – I just read you – I was looking at your league, Casey Craig, when I made the title today. Yes, I had you right in mind. And just as a heads up, too, we're at 1 hour and 32 minutes. In about 10 minutes, I will go rapid fire because we have a juicy mailbag here. I want to try to hit as many as possible. So we will go rapid fire mode in about 10 to 13 minutes. I was a couple minutes late, so I want to make sure I stay the full 2 hours at minimum with 37. And maybe we can climb to 4K. I'll stay an extra 10 minutes if we hit 4K today. How about that? So help your boy out. Hit that thumbs up, the likes, the shares, the retweets. And that way we can get all your questions in for sure. Juice Man, PPR League, Henry on bye week. Aaron still hurt. I have Jacobs, Will, Kenneth Walker, and should hit waiver Knight and Tucker Miller best available. I would be picking, if I'm you, you're playing Walker and you're playing Jacobs, unless Jacobs is ruled out, in which case I would definitely be playing Wilson. So I would Juice Man stash Wilson just in case Jacobs is out. 2 flex PPR, need wide receiver 2. Shaheed, Wendell, Garrett is out. So I'm guessing it's Wandale is who you're asking about. And I'd go Shaheed. I do worry about that Broncos matchup for the Giants. At least the passing game worries me there. So give me Shaheed. 2 flex, no tight end league for Juice Man. Pick 2 for me. Bourne, Dobbs, Judy, Hollywood, Nick Chubb. Bourne is far and away my favorite of the year. And Dobbs, probably the next closest. I really like Dobbs as well. So those would be the 2 options for me. Okay, ST grad. Oklahoma State grad is my guess is. Half don't want to flex Walker. Don't blame you. Golden, Whittington, Hollywood, Sterling, and McCaffrey. Would you plug one of those in instead? I think I'd pivot to Golden. If you really don't want to play him, I think I would play Walker myself. But if you don't want to, it's close enough, certainly, to bench him. And you got to trust your gut. So if I was your gut, I would tell you Golden if you really didn't want to play Walker. But I would play Walker myself. And then, Kristen, you already super chatted that one. Thank you again. Very, very generous of you to kick the morning off with a $20 super chat. Very kind of you. Eric, Mr. Lucky Schaefer, Chuba or Michael Carter? Ugh, 2 committee backs, 2 guys on the wrong side of the committee. I guess I'll go with the one in the Panthers offense, which is like, oh, the Panthers offense. Yeah, I feel better about that than the Cardinals against Green Bay, I think. So I go Chuba there. Kittle or Otten, Mr. Lucky? You got to go Kittle. Back in the lineup brings you such an injection of upside. You have to go Kittle. Ross H, don't have any questions. Just want to say I'm 5-1. Finally won my first game. My second league, I wish I could flip that one and be 5-1 in both, Ross. But hell yeah, at least one of those leagues you're absolutely cooking. And the other one, there's still time. I know it might sound crazy, but there's still time. Trust level with Kittle, Mike Evans. I am ready to light them up. I'm going back to both those guys. They took their time to get them healthy. Good spots. I'm going both of them. What's up, Apex? Lost Debo, so I need help on who to start the flex. DJ Moore, Wandale Knight, or Emmanuel Wilson if Jacobs is out. McCaffrey and Moore also on waivers. I'd be adding McCaffrey if you could, just to see what happens there, even if you're not playing him. To me, Wilson would be the starter if Jacobs is out, and if he's not, it comes down to DJ Moore versus McCaffrey for me. Part of me wants to say McCaffrey, but I think I realistically would go with DJ Moore on that one. Very intriguing options for both of them, though. Scott Tobias, start 1 receiver, 1 flex, BTJ, Johnston, Dowdle, Mason. I'm going to go with BTJ for the wide receiver and Dowdle very slightly over Johnston. And if Jacobs doesn't play, would you start Wilson over any of these? Nope. I would stick with any of these guys over Wilson even as a starter. Sports Guru, start 1 between Luke, Moore, and Bourne. I'm sticking with Bourne on that one. I'd rank them Bourne, then McCaffrey, then Seymour is how I look at those ones. But I think I've done a lot about both Bourne and Luke, so you guys know my case for them. Don't need to keep repeating that. But I love, again, that Mac Jones connection, 140 yards back-to-back weeks. Kittle back, no worries. I think he's going to keep cooking. Good morning, and thanks again for doing this. Hey, I love doing it. Loving the game. Take a couple hours out of the Sunday morning. It is tougher these days. You got Josie out there. All I want to do is go hang with my wife and daughter. But hey, 2 hours is one of my favorite things to do every week is see you guys and answer these questions. So thanks for saying thanks, and thanks for being here. Really happy to have you. And if you guys appreciate it, please do consider that thumbs up button. Help us to get out to more people, spread the good word. We are approaching 4,000. Holy crap. This is amazing. Thank you guys so much. Very humbling to see how many of you here. You just want your questions answered, but thank you again. And rotostreetjournal.com, again, is where you can find my rankings, find tons of content by me and so many other tremendous writers. Please do consider checking that site out and hitting that sub button and joining our YouTube channel. Scott Tobias, start 1 wide receiver, 1 flex. BTJ, Johnson, Dowdle, Mason. So again, BTJ for me, then Dowdle, and then Kraft or Fannin. I go Kraft at tight end there. AJ Lee, 12 team, super flex, PPR. Pick 2 to flex, please. Charbonnet, Shaheed, Burden, Chris Moore. I'd go with Shaheed and Chris Moore. A lot more upside to both those guys. Charbonnet's been a great touchdown bet. This is a good Houston run, good front 7. And to me, it's going to be one of those situations when he doesn't score the touchdown and you're staring at like 30 yards. That's hello darkness, my old friend. Give me Shaheed, give me Chris Moore. Hope for some blow-ups on that front. Kimberly Smith, what's up, Wolf? I need a kicker for week 8. Come on, you can't be stashing kickers. We'll figure that out when we get there. Use that roster spot on Luke McCaffrey. Use that roster spot on Emmanuel Wilson, an upside running back stash behind a starter. Do not blow it on a backup kicker a week in advance. That being said, if that's what you want to do and you're looking ahead, I like Badgley on the Colts. I think this offense is legit. I do think, having Schrader be that much automatic from 50 yards out was helpful, but Badgley can boot that thing too. So I'd go with Badgley myself. But again, pick him up next week. You don't need to stash him right now. If you want to stash something ahead of time, stash the Colts defense facing Tennessee next week. If you really want to stash some special teams, I still think it's more valuable to see what McCaffrey does, to see what Emmanuel Wilson does. Brian Robinson, I found on my waiver wire today. What if something happens to the other McCaffrey tonight? Those are the type of plays that end up you go into next week with a huge superstar. Now, Luther Burden should be stashed way ahead of an extra kicker. So, Kimberly, don't go to a kicker if you don't have to quite yet. But if you're just trying to get ahead for next week and think about who you should be looking at, I think Badge is the guy. Mason or Etienne. I go with Etienne there, Apex. Still getting the total rock there. It's 9:43, so that one's already too late for you. But I would have gone ET and Apex. Stephen McMahon, hope you're having a fabulous Sunday too, good sir. AJ Brown or Tet or holdout for news on Egbuka. This is getting close to where it's like maybe it is just worth it to hold out for Egbuka. I would say if we don't have any news by 1, though, you got 2 potential studs here, and I'd go Tet McMillan over AJ Brown right now. Happy Sunday to you too, DJ. Full PPR. Do I play Marvin Harrison or wait for – oh, you got to wait for – if you have both those guys, yeah, you're absolutely playing either Evans or Egbuka. It seems like Evans is definitely going to go. I shouldn't say definitely. Likely was the word that they used. Either way, though, you're playing Evans tomorrow. And I almost want to say, like, if you have both those guys, is there another receiver you should be holding out to wait for both of them? Because that Detroit secondary is horrific, and that game is going to go bananas. So either way, you're not playing Marvin Harrison today. Glenn N., is it crazy to flex Mason Taylor and bench Tet McMillan versus Sauce? I think that's a little crazy. Could it work out for you? Absolutely, for the exact reasons you say. The Jets have been very good against wide receiver 1. Sauce has been a huge part of that. And Mason Taylor's in a great spot. The Panthers have allowed, I believe, the most, if not the second most points to tight ends. And so I understand it. I still couldn't bench a talent like Tet McMillan for a tight end that could have 0. Yes, it's a good spot. I get why we could put him in a tight end spot today. I can't bench Tet McMillan for him. And I would not bench any of those 3 receivers either. So I totally get where you're coming from. Lenny asking, Bill or Scatabo? Oh, wish you could have them both. 2 of my favorite rookie running backs. I can't bench Scatabo after a 3-touchdown day, even in a tough matchup against the Broncos. I'm rolling him out. Bill's in such a beautiful spot against the Cowboys, and now they're probably going to run even more with all these receiver injuries. So I love him. I think Bill's a phenomenal smash play too. I wish you could get them both in, Lenny. But if I had only one, it'd be Scatabo. And then B. Sir asking, pick one PPR, Woody, Ayo, or Chuba. I'd go Woody here and hope for some racking up some passing game stats against a team that does not defend pass-catching running backs well. We are at the 15-minute mark here, Wolfpack. Or rather, like I said, I'm going to go an extra 20. And then if we do hit 4K, which we're trending towards, I'll go an extra 10 as said. But I'm going to start a 20-minute timer anyways because this is a loaded mailbag, and I want to make sure to get to all of it. So I'm going to hit that start button in just a second to do our rapid fire. But Wolfpack, thank you again so much for being here on your Sunday morning. It is so greatly appreciated. One last call for that thumbs up button because that's why we're getting out to so many more people is you guys hitting that like button on Twitter, the heart button, the likes, the shares, the retweets. It really does go so far. And again, 26 super chats. You guys are so kind and generous with that today. Thank you so much. It is so greatly appreciated. And last call out is rotostreetjournal.com is where all of our content is. In the description, you can find a link to my rankings on YouTube. The description's there. If you're watching on Twitter, they're pinned at the top of my page as well. Check those on out. I will be updating those throughout the morning if there's any more news to get through. All righty, rapid fire, hitting the play button. Let's do it. Troy S. Hall or White or Mason. I'm going to go with Rashad White, very slightly over Breece Hall there, Troy S. Giuseppe Russo, good morning, Wolfpack. Do I start Brown, Dobbs, or Wandale? This is a case where I would go Brown despite being lower on him. Coach Zeke, would you start May or Herbert? I'm going May. I do love Herbert, and I love that they're down all those corners, but I'm going Drake May 10 out of 10 times at this point. Going to keep riding him. Kyle Toons, need 2 running backs and 1 flex. Mason, Vidal, Dowdle, Marks. Oh, you already sent this one, Toons, and we went to 3 running backs at the top there. M. Dave, pick 2. Worthy, Mason, Shaheed, Fannin. I would be going with Worthy, and I'd be going with Mason, M. Dave. Sads 9M, good morning, full PPR. Otten or Taylor, and Tet, Jamo, and Vidal. I like Otten more, I do. If Egbuka's ruled in, then that definitely flips. But for right now, I do like Otten. I guess with that news hanging over our heads, maybe I do pivot and go to Taylor, though. Tet, Jamo, Vidal, pick 2. I'm going to bench Jamo, despite, again, loving that game environment. I like Vidal and Tet just a little bit more. Love or Stafford, I'm going to go Jordan Love there, Tunes. You killed me Thursday for asking. I have to ask. Ferg or Fannin? I'm going with Ferg. I'm not reading the context. I understand it, Giuseppe, but I'm going to stick with that number 1 tight end. I think they have plenty of ability to feed 3 mouths. Fields or Mac Jones? Kind of want to say Mac Jones, safer at least. But I'd go Fields for the rushing upside there. Kyle Toons, Otten, Ingram, Pitts, pick 1. I would be going, sorry, saw that the game kicked off, and Higbee's apparently putting on a show. There we are. Kyle Tunes, Otten, Ingram, Pitts. I would be going with Cade Otten, assuming they're all those other guys are out. DJ Johnson, pick 2, full PPR. Ladd, BTJ, Bill. I'd be benching Ladd with Quentin Johnston back. Mason over Stevenson? I do, but I'm worried about Stevenson blowing up against me this week. I'll tell you that. Risk Mike Evans or pick up McCaffrey, Tez Johnson? I would say you pick up Tez, and that way you can play Mike Evans if he's in, and if he does surprisingly get ruled out, you have Tez waiting for you. With Jacobs being sick, do I go? No. As long as he's in, you go there. With my super chat, you mentioned Marks was attractive. For running back 2, would you go Pacheco or Marks? I go Pacheco because, like you said, he is picking up steam. The offense is definitely clicking. It sucks that he's getting goal line vultured, but ultimately I would go with Pacheco. Nocturnal. Where does Shepard land on your rankings? Mediocre. I'd rather have Tez Johnson. I'd rather certainly have Luke McCaffrey. I'd rather play Michael Mayer for him. Yeah, I don't love Shepard. He's cooked. KJ Frederick, what's up, bro? Good to see you, bro. Better running back 2 start, Rico or Mason? I like Rico. I know Chuba's back, and I like Rico. Should I put Mike Evans in my flex? Yes, you should. It seems like he's likely to play, and I think Tez Johnson's a great pivot if he doesn't. Rest in peace, my fantasy team. Injuries, yeah, it's brutal, Andrew, but we got to plow through. You need 2 of these. Cup, Io Manor, and Tutu. I would have gone probably Cup and Io Manor in that case. Not starting Bam Knight, would you rather have Bam or Kendre Miller? Bam, I think. I guess if you're not starting him, then Kendre, because they have the bye next week for Bam. Benson's back. Kendre, the better stash. Is Hunter draft droppable? Yeah, in shallow leagues, absolutely. It depends who you're dropping him for, Giuseppe. But yeah, Steven Pereira, Dak or Jaden? I'm going Jaden. Waller or Mason? I guess with all these receivers, it is a real question, but I'm still going to go Jaden. Waller or Mason Taylor? Waller for me, the touchdown machine. Got to go with it. Have Debo start. Evans, JMO, IR, or pick up McCaffrey. Everyone hit that like and sub button. Thanks for your help and knowledge like always. Thank you, Texas Hustler, for the hype as always. And I definitely go Evans out of those 3, Mr. Texas Hustler. Apex Alpha, Mason or ETN? I'm going to go with ETN. Jalen Lane, big day. So, again, your guess is as good as mine, Tony. I don't know who it will be, but ultimately, I do think Lane is viable. I think McCaffrey is the one that I prefer myself, though. I rank McCaffrey then more than Lane. Goozy Gaming, have Allen and Golden, and everyone else on my bench is injured or on bye. I need to pick one, but Luke McCaffrey is available, so I drop one of them to start Luke. Play the number 1 guy. Please help. I'd rather have Allen and Golden than either of those guys. Wolf, Kelsey, Cup, Troy Franklin. Need 2. I would go. I'd bench Troy Franklin, Tony. I'd bench Troy Franklin. Morning Armin. Flex 2, half PPR. Chris Moore, Tyler Warren, Tez, Keenan, Hendo. You got to go Tyler Warren. He's head and shoulders above the rest, and I would go Keenan myself. Yeah, lots of strange news this morning with tight ends, with Debo, all that stuff. I guess not fully this morning, but I often catch up with the Sunday morning news like 5 a.m., and I was surprised to see it. Olave or hold out for Egbuka? I think I would probably just go Olave. I can't imagine Egbuka plays. Thank you. I appreciate Sauce. Yeah, if you're scared by Sauce, I totally understand. DV Severe, full PPR, start 3. And we are at 4,100. We have officially hit by far a new record. So I will add an extra time to the timer as I promised to make sure we keep going and get to hopefully everybody at this point. DV Severe, though, PPR. Start in 4,200 of you. Please do hit that thumbs up button. Check out rotostreetjournal.com. Hit the like button on Twitter, the like, the share, the retweet, all that good stuff. Thank you again so much for helping us break a new record here, Wolfpack. We'd love to hit 5K subscribers. I know we won't get them all today, but even a few of you hitting that sub button would go such a long way. Thank you again. rotostreetjournal.com. Rankings will be in the description, baby, and on the website. DV Severe, full PPR, JMO, Montgomery, B. Knight, Michael Carter, or Wandale. I'm going JMO. I'm going Montgomery. And I'm going to go Bam Knight begrudgingly over Wandale. Lucio, half PPR, pick 1 receiver and flex. Tet, QJ, Vidal. I'm going to go with QJ, and I'm going to go with Vidal over Tet. Crazy, but I think I'm going to do it. Tunes, Dak or May. I'm going to go with May. It is a tough one, though. I totally understand. Frosty, Puka hurt, needs receiver and a flex. Bourne, Tucker, Pierce, Shepard. I'm going Bourne, and I would go Tucker over the other 2. Lamonte Pace, Taylor or Otten? I like Otten. If Egbuka's ruled in, then that dies, but I like it for right now. James Coffey, full PPR. Would you start Tajay Spears, whose new coach says the Titans will simplify the offense for their WB? Thanks. Probably for the QB is what you meant. You could start Tajay Spears. It depends what the other option is. I don't love it. I'd rather have Luke McCaffrey, for example, in my lineup. I'd rather have even Jordan Whittington or Michael Mayer. I'd like to see that play out before. The Pats run D is very good, too. Of all the weeks to start them, it's not this week. So I'd wait and see on there. And there's so many good receiver streamers that are all on the groceryjournal.com list on the website that I wrote. Good morning, Steve Weber. Good to see you. Kyle Toons, Fannin or Henry. Then in a separate league, Henry or Gadsden. I like Fannin and I like Henry for those two. Cody Blasco, would you start Jalen Hurts or Stafford? Definitely Jalen Hurts for me. Let's have a day, Dylan Fink. I agree. Full PPR made a trade. Swift for QJ. I like the move. Absolutely. And then flex, I would be going with Golden. Quarterback, I would be going with Mac Jones. Need to start Nap God. One receiver, one flex. Jamo, Worthy, Whittington, Wilson if Jacobs sits. I would go Worthy and Jamo, but if Jacobs does sit, I would sub out Jamo and put in Wilson. Exactly my thought process. Hey, thank you, Chief Perp. Your team is absolutely destroying it. Black Rain, Chris Moore or Whittington. I like Whittington, but I think they're both good sleepers this week. Lucas Morris, start 2. Dowdle, Hubbard, Vidal. I would be benching Hubbard there. I'd go Dowdle and Vidal. I would not go both, Lucas. I would be benching Hubbard in that one. John Martin, good morning. Pick 2, full PPR. Pittman, Waddle, Olave, Devontae Smith. I would be going with, I think Olave and Waddle are the two I would go with. I don't think the weather is too bad. I like Waddle over Pittman Jr. Stafford or Hurts. I'm going to go with Hurts. With Debo out, pick me a flex. Rico, MHJ, Addison, Spears, or Vidal. I would go with Rico in that one, Paul Wooden. JK, that weather report got me shade. It is scary, but it sounds like by kickoff it won't be too bad. Evans, Adunze, BTJ, Addison, Pickens. Who do I start, Saquon or JCM? Saquon over Bill for me. Awesome roster here, Marcus. I would rank those Adunze, then Evans, then BTJ. Pickens, though, I have above all of them. I think Adunze might be above Pickens at this point. And if he's not, he should be. Yeah, I'm going to put Adunze over Pickens. So I would go Adunze, then Pickens, then Evans, then BTJ. Great receivers. New sub. Hey, thank you, John. Glad to have some new subs. Anybody else, we'd love to have you as well. Thursday and Sunday pregame shows. Love taking your questions every time. Thank you guys so much. Would love to climb towards that 5K. And John, we appreciate you helping us get there. Mayfield, Caleb. I think I might have these guys quarterback 8, quarterback 9. I love that the Saints can't pressure anybody, so Caleb should have all day. But I also just love Baker Mayfield. You got Evans back, and now maybe Egbuka in a shootout on Monday night. I'm going to go with Baker Mayfield in that one. Thank you again for subbing, and we'd love to have you stick around. Whittington, McCaffrey, Pollard, Miller, Burden, pick 2. I would go with McCaffrey, and I'm not starting Pollard today. I'm done with this guy. I would have gone Whittington, and if you didn't, I'd go Burden. I guess if you didn't go Whittington, I think Whittington, McCaffrey is my favorite 2 easy. And if you missed then, I guess I go McCaffrey, Pollard. What you think, chat? Start 2, Dowdle, Hubbard. You got to bench. You can't go with both, Lucas. Bench Hubbard. Merritt or Dowdle, that's where I definitely go Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt as they turn the keys over this week. Needed to pound the rock a bit more. I just want to make sure. Yep, I do have that. We have right back 13. I love JCM. Holden Tootin through the bye. We'll see how he does today for sure. If he's not showing up today, then I might need to cut him for something more attractive on the bench. How close is it between? Oh, yeah, Sugar Smack, you asked that one as a super chat. Thank you again so much for super chatting twice to get that one in. Eric Schaefer, PPR, have to pick 2 out of 4. Diggs, Swift, Mason, Addison. That's a pretty good one. I would go Swift and Addison. That's a tough one, Eric, but I'm going to go Swift, Addison. Bulldog, good morning, Wolfpack. Start Rico or Vidal. I like Rico in that one. Jamo or AJ Brown. I'm going to go with AJ Brown on that one, Jose. Wolf, you're the man. Best fantasy advice. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. Pass the mic. Always so kind in asking your questions. You got Judkins, Genty to sit. I sit Genty for Scat or Rico. I'd play Judkins and Genty over Scat and Rico. You got great options here. And I definitely would play Rice over the running backs as well. So it's crazy to be benching Scatter Rico, but that's what I would do too. Pass the mic karaoke. Sounds like you got a monster roster over there. Well done. Kobe, brother, love the advice. Thank you so much, Kobe. Need to start too. Mike Evans, BTJ, Rashad White. Crazy, but I think BTJ is finding the bench for me in that one, Kobe. Nuts. I got to see it again from BTJ. I wonder how he's playing right now, but I need to see it again. I'm going BTJ, Rashad White there. Scat or Swift, I go Scat, Jose. Like, share, and subscribe. People best in the biz. Thank you so much, Giuseppe. And indeed, thumbs up, heart button, all that good stuff. And, of course, rotostreetjournal.com. Check it out for these rankings. Do I start Jalen Waddle in horrible weather, DJ Moore in bad weather, or Io Manor, who has a disabled quarterback? I would go with Jalen Waddle and take the weather, the worst of those evils. BTJ or Adunze? I go Adunze, Brendan Robin. Osarius, Luke McCaffrey or Wilson? If Jacob sits, it's Wilson. If he's in, I think Luke McCaffrey's a great pivot. Dylan Bowen, Marks, Vidal, Bourne, full PPR. I like Vidal, then I like Bourne. And rest of the season, I still think it's Vidal. Depends on that Hampton injury. But Marks by the end of the season could be by far the most valuable. I like Vidal the most of those three, Dylan. Tiago, Harold Fannin or Laporta? I would go with Laporta on that one. Defense question for Pass the Mic. Green Bay or Denver? Somehow I have both. Thanks again. You have great options there. I think I roll with Green Bay, but man, that's a tough call. Enjoy your day with the wife and daughter. Thank you so much, Steve Weber. They both like football so far, which is amazing. So I'm excited to watch some Red Zone with them. Lull. Tet versus Sauce looks like a no for me. What do you think? I'm with you. He has been shutting people down. They are very good against wide receiver ones. I still would play Tet over a lot of people, but I did bump him down in my rankings given how good Sauce Gardner is against wide receiver ones. D. Cannon. Start Luke McCaffrey, Coker, or Shepard. Pick one. I like Luke there. Is where I would rank them. I'd rank them in the exact order you typed them in. Can I start Trey Tucker or Chris Moore ahead of Tet? You could. I wouldn't. I think Tet's too talented to pull something like that. But they're both good plugins this week, Lal. So if you're feeling it, you got to trust your gut. I don't know that I would do that. Need a tight end in flex. Taylor, Waller, Keenan, Sterling, Moore, or Dowdle. I would be going with Waller for the tight end, and I'd be going with Dowdle for the flex there, A-word. Two flex, Cup, Carter, Charb, Harvey, Chuba, Booty, Mason Taylor, Otten, and I assume Luke McCaffrey's not an option here because I'd have him above all these guys. Especially if Jacobs is in, yes, in terms of dropping B-Rob for Emmanuel Wilson, because I'd start Emmanuel Wilson with no Jacobs over all these guys as well. But let's assume you do not have those options. I'd probably be going the double tight ends here with Mason Taylor and Cade Otton, the best path to some value and volume here. Don't love it, though, Fez, but we'll see. I'd go Taylor and Otton, but if Wilson presents himself as an option, I'd put him in and then keep Otton in. Should I start Brees, JCM, or Genty? I'd be benching Brees. You can only pick one? I got to go with Genty, but then JCM's a close second there. Carson Wentz or Mac Jones? I got to go with Mac Jones. He's averaging 330 yards per game, Marcel. Got to keep lighting that up. Chat what y'all think. Let them know. Pick two wide receivers, one flex. Evans, Tet, Worthy, McCaffrey, Wandale, Booty. You got to go Evans, and you got to go Worthy is my play there, C. Hicks. And don't judge these running back options. I'll try my best, but I'll swallow back some puke here, C. Hicks. Bam Knight, Charbonnet, or Algier? I'm going to go Bam Knight and hope for the starting role still. I picked up Wilson, so now at flex, Scat, Swift, or Wilson. Scat. Skit, scat, scoodle, doot. If anybody's read Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, you know that one. Scat, though, for me. Alpha Gator, USA. Trevion or Chubb, half PPR. I got to go with Trevion and just hope this Tennessee defense is where he has his coming out party. Start two PPR, Tucker, Golden, Dobbs. If Jacobs is out, put Wilson in that mix. If Wilson's in the mix, he'd be my favorite option. But assuming not, I would go Dobbs and then Tucker to spread the wealth a little bit. RJ Harvey, Tajay, or Wilson. If Wilson's starting, it'd be Wilson. If not, it'd be Tajay, lol. So we'll see if we know it. All righty. Dowdle or McConkey. I would go with Dowdle there, Dustin Vorst. Tough. Emmanuel Wilson, Bourne, or Trevion for Z. Gitlin. I would go with Bourne. I like Bourne the most out of these options. If Wilson is, I'm assuming Wilson means like Jacobs isn't playing. I might pivot there. I still think especially if this is full PPR, I'd probably stick it out with Bourne. He's been so good. Two of Emmanuel, Trevion, Bourne. You can't play Emmanuel unless Jacobs is ruled out. And if Jacobs is ruled out, then it's Emmanuel and Bourne. If not, it's Trevion Bourne. Caleb or Drake May. I got to go Drake May all day. I love Drake May. My quarterback 2 or 3 of the week. He's up there. Mr. Nice Guy. Mr. Nice Guy. Full PPR. George Kittle, his first game back, or Harold Fannin. I'm going George Kittle 10 out of 10 times there. Mr. Nice Guy. We've been waiting for this moment. Fire him up, baby. Good morning, Matisse. Half PPR. Start 1 in the flex. Hubbard, Bourne, Woody Marks, or Devonta Smith. Thanks in advance. I would be going with Bourne in the flex for that one, Matisse. Maurice McDonald. What's up on Jacoby Myers? Should I pick him or should I drop him and pick up Luke? I wouldn't. And if you need to start Luke, then yes. But I am intrigued to see where Jacoby Myers could potentially get traded to. So I'd be hanging on to him for right now if it's just a bench stash. The Fun Day Draft Show. With the weather issues in Cleveland, Fannin or Kraft? Would have been Kraft anyways. Still sticking to Kraft, even especially with that weather there. Trey Tucker over T-Mac for flex. I would not do that. I'd go with T-Mac, but I can see why if you're worried about Sauce, you'd consider that. I personally would not do that myself. Also, should I go Waller, Mayer, or Otten? I like Waller for sure. The tight end machine, touchdown machine's been a beast. 80% of the routes last week too. Nice to see. Blunt Brush, non-PPR. Who's the most droppable? Pittman, Gainwell, Harvey? It's Gainwell for me. Quincy Davis. If Egbuka plays, do I start him over these guys? Bill, Rice, Sutton, Evans, Sutton. Nope, I don't think so, Quincy. If you knew he was fully healthy right now today, yes, but the risk of dragging that out to Monday and he's not active, I don't think I take that one. Thanks, Wolf. You're welcome, Blunt Brush. Sit 1. Don't know who. Thanks. You're welcome, Maurice. And D. Cannon. PPR, start 1. Knight, Trey, and Spears or Marks. I think I got to go with Trevion Henderson in this one and just, again, hope it's his coming out party. Very slightly overnight. And then DeAndre Swift or Rico D. I'm going Rico D still, Seth. Can't bet you guy had 473 yards the last 2 weeks, even with Chuba coming back. It's a tough call to know what they do, but we know Canales has typically ridden his workhorses. Wolfpack, almost 4,500 live here with us. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support. On your way out, please hit that like button on Twitter, on YouTube. It means the world. We'd love to have you subscribe over on YouTube as we make the climb. I mean, we're only like 200 or so away from 5K. If even 1/5 of the people watching the show went over and hit the sub button, it would mean the world and help us climb. But if not, all of you go check out rotostreetjournal.com where all of these rankings will be live and updated. I've been making the moves as I talk about them. You guys are the absolute best. It does look like 2 more questions. The timer is going off, but I did say I'd stay an extra minute to wrap these up. So, Mr. Nice Guy, full PPR flex, Fannin or McMillan. I'm still going with Tet McMillan. I know everyone wants to bench him. I'm going to keep it going. Flex, Tet, Luke, Wandale, Booty. I'm sticking with Tet on this case. Here, C. Hicks with McCaffrey, my next one. And thank you again, Mr. Nice Guy. Everyone smash the like. Sub for life, bro. Hell yeah. Let's go. Love you guys. Thank you so much again for making a record-setting Sunday morning 4,500. I can't even get over that number. That is insane. You guys are awesome. Thanks again for being here. Best of luck in week 7. Check out rotostreetjournal.com for the rankings. One last call for that thumbs up on your way out to rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed you fantasy wolves. See ya on Thursday. Best of luck.